And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here away. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe?
Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat. Couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. Just breathe in the steam and the smoke. Pink salt, lavender, candles are low. Shit, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. And he got a life of his own that's a sight to behold. And it's a lot to control, to decipher the code or to siphon the soul. The cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. Worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. Ripe for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision of natural fission, of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who'll listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide. They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your text, after they raid your apartment, confiscate all of its contents, then conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically first they will come for the communists. So why in the fuck would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She is wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and is only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with his. Like off with his.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe?
People, you don't think I see you crying in your cars, but I do. Sometimes I can feel it at a red light, someone at my side trying to muddle through. see them wiping their eyes in the rear view. Like black hole sun in the sky, why the fuck won't you come when I need you? Well, this moment in time is as close as we'll be and as far as I'll meet you. Two windows in between us, new moon in the house of Venus. One stranger who sees you and reads your features knows that your alibi might be tight, but it's not quite leak-proof. So if you're sitting at the light and you're crying in your car, just know that I see you. And it's a 50-50 that I'm bloodshot, gun-shy, once bitten, twice tried, ribs pried wide to the sky till I'm see-through.
That's you, in case you don't recognize yourself.
You don't think I see you struggling to breathe, but I do. I see you stumble in your everyday grief like I do. I try, but I do. I'm twice bitten too. My mind's split in two. My knuckles bright white from the 10 to the 2. And the song in my head is the theme for a fugue. A state of decay through the filter of corporate news, where they edit the grays and the blues. They whitewash the brown till they drown out the natural hues. And then it's just another fact to refuse, that the corporate ladder's for hanging the company noose. Consider it one of your perks, after all it's communal in use. So you can come and hang till your legs go limp and they're shaking you loose. Now you watch 5 co-workers opt for the alternate exit, neatly suspended above where you wolf down your food. And your company gets its incentives embellished by harping on wellness, suggesting you'd best take time for your mental health after your 14 hours are through. Like we gave you a bottle to piss in and fixed up a noose on the crossbeam. Christ, what more can we do? So if you struggle to breathe any moment that you aren't asleep, then remember, most of Americans fear for their savings, fear for their shelter, fear for their babies. You aren't the fringe of exception, but rather a perfect example of capital's rule. And you're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. You're far less alone than the ruling class tells you is true. I see you crying in your cars, but I do.
That's how it goes. We won't open our eyes, so we're the last ones to know. We're the last ones alive. Kept our enemies close. Wondered why we don't thrive while we're grasping at ghosts. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5. Counting backwards from 5.
Count back from 5. The theater on fire, the cast on strike. The studio stock starts taking a dive. The contracts tossed and they're gone with the tide. And the heads and execs, their hands are tied. We can't pump this dreck and treat you right. But what do you expect from the industry type who survive by the leeching of bodies and minds? From those who original thoughts never seem to find. So they're gonna reboot ALF before your wages rise. And it gives cause to pause and reflect on the times. If they're losing control of their fools and their mimes, when all those obedient actors who grew their careers by averting their eyes are now holding the line, along with the authors of countless scripts that strengthen the hand of that corporate grip, squeezing our throats till we take the pen and we accept and consent to the corporate drip. Till you're all up to date on your pharma du jour, till you got a healthy support for the war on your lips, And now you know that the advertisers need more than a rerun summer full of flashback clips. Enter the scans from the year before, all the days of de-aging and mapping the face, and the hours of actors recording their voices are links in the chains that will bind them in place. Now all of those shows are so easy to make. When they got a drone they control that needs no break, it can bend, it can break, and it's cheaply replaced enough up-to-date films all in one take. And those studios bank on us doing our duty, unhinging our jaws and digesting the fakes. Because they know that we'll love how synthetic it tastes. Watch as they edit your features without any trace. Not that there's anything you could do anyway. Now watch as they show you a movie you saying shit you would never say. Dystopia boldly accelerates. Maybe you're only a mold, something to fill with a clone, something that Elon would celebrate. Something they own, something they program and code, something that's woefully able to know it's exanimate. Because it doesn't feel touch over top of the laminate. You will not feel an emotion, but they will not scan and examine it. You and the other consumer contaminants fed on the federal diet of Kiev, Havana, and Tiananmen. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment. I can't be the only one weighing the pros of abandonment. Where did you think we'd go? Love, there's nowhere to lie. Guess it's not who you know, more it's what you can hide. Like we're chained to the floor, they're streaming us live while we're watching the war, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards from 5, counting backwards.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? And peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer. Liberation.
IDN News.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
It's Wednesday. It's me, Reef. With me, as always, Collin Radix-Carter, aka Care Bear, here on this lovely Turkey Day Eve, with another INN News.
Is
Care Bear,
your
how are
turkey
you?
done? Good.
Probably pretty close. Should be, yeah, like an hour ago it was done. But I'm gonna let it cook for
Yeah.
another 12 hours. So why not?
Oh, hold on. Before you go, you have to explain.
Yes.
You have to explain to the fam what you're doing, because they're probably wondering why is the turkey almost done. When
Take 2 days. It's been cooking
Yes.
for 2 days. Yeah, sous vide.
yes,
You put the dark meat in at like 170, right? And you can let it go for like 24 hours, right? You turn the temp down, right? You put your white meat in 150 for another 24 hours. And then an hour before service, you pull it out and brown off everything. And make it look all nice and pretty and let it rest for a bit and cut and eat.
So wait, so it's all in parts then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like two big like leg quarters, and then an airline breast. If anyone knows what that is.
Honestly, I did turkey. I guess the general parlance is quarters. I guess.
Yeah,
but I guess it's the
leg and thigh.
But I honestly, personally, if I were, I think I told you this like a couple of years ago. I just roasted the quarters because I was by myself. So I was like, I want turkey, but obviously I'm by myself. I didn't want the whole damn thing. So
a cord lord is like, you doing boil bags? Kinda. Yeah, it's Ziploc. You put it in there. I've got like turkey spices and salt and all that stuff, little sugar, whatever, letting it go.
Yeah. But I think doing turkey parts, in all honesty, is the way to go, because you're not dealing with the white meat issue in terms of it being dry, and people are so concerned about like, how can I not? Now, if you brine it, sure, but there's always the risk of you cooking it too long to the point where it does dry out, and your leg and thigh are going to be somewhat, compromised with that. So if you're just dealing with the dark meat, you're not going to have that issue. And then dark meat, at least on a turkey, is always much better than a white meat anyway. Plus, if you have gravy, especially, you're going to be dousing the mess with some type of fat.
It'll look like this when I'm done. Hopefully. Yummers.
That kind of looks a little light. I like mine
even like more that. Dark.
Like that brown. Yeah, I like it.
Brown. Yeah, exactly.
But I think what kind of brine did you use?
It kind of brines in the bag as you cook it, right? So like you put like salt and sugar in like you would a brine, right? Mm-hmm. And like it's going for 24 hours. So like the whole time you're doing that, it's like brining and cooking, and like you can't, because of the sous vide, like the sous vide, for those who don't know, it's like a water bath, right? Right. Where like it keeps things at like a exact temperature, right? So that like you literally cannot overcook them,
right?
Like so it's just impossible to do. So it'll render all the fat in there because it's cooking for that long, and like it's juicy as shit. White meat, not overcooked at all. It's gonna be delicious. So it's literally the best way I've ever made turkey. Foolproof as shit. It is like you can't do better than that, pretty much. So
other than maybe possibly deep frying it for folks who do
see here's the thing with the sous vide, I can finish however I want to, right? So like it's already cooked, so I could technically toss it into the deep fryer if I wanted to and finish it off that way, or take it out to the smoker, or grill it off,
and you won't have to do it as long in the deep fry.
Yeah.
So
Lurley in the chat, sous vide is a cooking method that uses a precise water bath to cook food in a sealed, vacuum packed, that's why it's sous vide, means under vacuum, to a consistent and perfect doneness. And they're like not expensive. You can get like a sous vide cooker for like $100. Like for like a kitchen appliance, that's like not the worst thing. Like a small food processor is like the same amount of money. So
yeah, you were like, you should get a sous vide, and I'm like, I don't have space.
It's tiny. It's like
a small kitchen.
It's a little tiny thing. Like the actual thing. I mean, you have to have something to cook it in, but you have pots and stuff already. You know,
Sure.
like a lot of people use like a Lexan, like big plastic container. You know, I've seen even crazy people do like big coolers. They'll put it in like a Yeti cooler. You know, keeps all the heat and stuff in. But I use Joule. I got in early with Joule. Joule's an expensive one. Which has all the fucking, you got to get to it on your phone, which sucks. I want physical controls. I recommend the Anova Mini these days. It's got, you just turn the dial on it. Great. But the Joule has like a magnetic base. So like I can just grab a Dutch and like it just magnets to the bottom of the Dutchie, you know?
Yeah.
So
I'm just reading some of the comments. A Corridor said, I'm just doing a $10 18. How did you get a turkey that big for $10? Explain that.
I bought it early, I guess. $10 18-pound whole turkey. Looking good for you, dude. Found those
Good
fucking.
for you. I'm like, I mean,
those deals.
It's hard to get turkeys off season though, so it's like,
yeah.
How
had that deep freeze ready? Literally, apparently, AI says there's something I've never heard of called perfect doneness. As a restaurant cook, I'm sure I could find a customer who disagreed, and we kindly and politely ask them to fucking leave. That's what we do. Get the fuck out of here. It's well done. It's medium. It's fine. Shut up. Eat the food. Like, you know. But
regardless,
craziness.
Glad you guys are here. I'm sure a lot of you are either traveling as we speak or food prepping as we speak. So we know more than likely this is going to be a light episode. So definitely, if you're watching this after the fact, we definitely appreciate it. And if we don't say it later, happy Thanksgiving to all who celebrate, but just give the understanding as to why we celebrate it.
Yeah. And the terrible things that happened after and probably during.
But I do understand. I'm sure it's a day for many of us have off. It's a day where we're able to be with friends and family, and so I think in that aspect, sure, it's good.
It's just a good food day. That's all it is to me.
Yeah,
you know.
But I think,
which I am thankful for, and that's enough.
Right. Well, no, I think especially right now, given the state of the world and the state of the country, I think it's very easy to be somewhat cynical in terms of there's not a lot going on.
Yeah.
That I think, especially, not one say especially, but I think for a lot of us, we really have to dig deep in order to kind of find the things that we're showing gratitude to. But I think at least for tomorrow or whenever you're celebrating, if you do, to really think about that. But I think also understand that there may be many others, especially during this time of the year, that are really going through it. And so I think just being mindful of that, you know, and trying to support, we should be doing this all year long, but trying to support people who are in need, not just limited to this country, but worldwide as well. And, you know, doing our best in whatever capacity to support those folks. But I think just really, you know, like, I think for many of us, it could be a lot worse. And at least for right now, it's not. So just having some time to show gratitude, you know, whatever that means for you, I think is important. So,
I'm definitely grateful. I'm grateful for mac and cheese such as this.
Sure.
Yeah. I can't wait to fucking put that in the oven tomorrow.
Oh, this is you.
Yeah,
what's
dude.
on it?
Bacon bits.
Yeah.
And I'll throw some like Ritz crackers on top, throw it in the oven. Also like fried onions, because why not? You know? Dude, I don't mess around. I didn't get this big for no reason, dude. You know, I know how to do me some shit. Like,
well, here's the thing. Now I've been losing out. It's like I'll be fine, but it's
healthy. Protein pasta, bro. Protein pasta is healthy.
Yes, but cheese, like dairy, like
fat,
all that bread and like fat and oil, like that's gonna put me
in a coma
to sleep / bathroom.
Mhm.
Like, or stomach is not going to feel so great,
Yep.
afterward. Like
I
all
will,
the
though.
dairy and the butter and the
That's my
cream and the
favorite
fat
part.
and all the things.
I literally only do mac and
So-
cheese like twice a year, so
Right.
will indulge. But
Yeah. But let us know in the chat what are your favorite Thanksgiving foods.
yeah.
You can go up there while we kind of go off on
Sorry for the
our
British
stories
people
this week.
who, didn't. Well, I guess they did subjugate a whole lot of people, but like not specifically ours and their whole story
Right.
about how we had a meal together,
Right.
And then after that, it was not smooth sailing. So,
Right.
but yeah, anyway, we brought stories.
So, well, I don't want to say light, but obviously we know a lot of you are kind of occupied, so we'll try and keep it short and sweet tonight. So my stories kind of relate to each other. They were underreported, not surprised. It's kind of surprising. So thank you for everyone for giving me this lane to kind of talk about these two issues. But one I think is a little bigger than at least in terms of mainstream press, one story got a little more attention. But they both relate to Department of Education shenanigans. So very quietly, while people are talking about Mandani and MTG and other people who was just like whatever, the Department of Ed is being quietly dismantled. But I found a story of how this relates to the Native American community. So obviously November is Native American Heritage Month, and given that it's Thanksgiving, so you can kind of consider this our Thanksgiving story. We usually do a Thanksgiving story around this time every year, at least on the show. So kind of consider that. I don't know where Reef went. I think he went to relieve his dog. But if I could scroll down. So my main story tonight, there are several majors that through the Department of Ed have been declassified as professional. Nurses, I think, were like the big profession that people have been up in arms about. So we're going to talk about
rightfully
that
so.
A little bit. I do definitely, and also education. It's also been considered unprofessional now. So, so I definitely have thoughts being one as a teacher, but also having many of the women in my family who were nurses. So I have thoughts. But again, kind of a big story that went underreported in my eyes. So I'm going to talk about it. And then what did you bring?
Well, I brought.
You actually wrote one.
I did. As much I tried to do as little writing in it as possible, but there's some paragraphs or whatever. But we'll get to that. But before that, we're going to talk about something a little closer to home for me. We're going to be talking about prisoners in Louisiana. Specifically, they are paroling prisoners to then deport them. Which, if you know anything about the Louisiana penal system, parole does not exist. So the fact that they're doing that and fast tracking a lot of people through this system just to deport them is despicable, and we're going to discuss it. And this is the story Collin mentioned that I wrote. Bit of wordplay of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But different guy. This is Victor Marx. We're gonna do a story on Marx today, everyone, but not the one you wish. He's running for governor of Colorado, and he's been on my radar for a minute. For things that you'll find out at the end of the show. But one of those times where I felt like electoralism and actual geopolitics kind of combine. And I have some suspicions that, that I legally am going to say are speculation, but we're going to get into it. But not great things from the people I talk to that interact in the areas he interacts in. They also have some very hard suspicions. So we'll see. You'll get why when I talk about it.
Sure.
So,
I haven't read it yet, so I'm looking forward to doing like a blind reaction to this. So
yeah, that's
I know
what
you've been working on this article for a while. So
yeah,
guys, thank you so much.
Finding the time to like put it down and put all the stuff in my head out, just get it all out of there, you know. But anyway,
but yeah, fam, thank you so much for being here. Like I said, we know definitely if you're prepping your food or traveling or whatever, definitely, you know, continue doing that. If you just happen just to listen at minimum, great, thank you. That being said, we do understand for a lot of you, this is a very busy time of year and financially strapped for a lot of you. So, you know, so obviously we always say this every week, but especially now, please take care of your family, your friends, your neighbors, especially at this time of year. That being said, in order to keep the show and the network going, because YouTube has demonetized us, we're actually kind of proud to say we're 100% fully crowd funded by you. We don't take any ads. YouTube basically is like, fuck y'all. No.
Yeah, not gonna get that.
So any revenue that we get, pretty much all of it comes directly from you. So we are supported by only you. So we really appreciate that. We've been able to kind of be in the black in terms of paying off our bills for the year. So if you want to support us for next year, because those bills will be coming pretty soon, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen. Or if you're in the YouTube chat and you're live and you forgot the Ko-fi link, you can type in !donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up. You can click on it and donate as little as much as you want. Anything as low as $1. It will help us. And then we also will take money via Cash App, PayPal, or Substack. Links are always in the description below. As we always say, you know, we know for a lot of you, you can't give financially. That's more than okay. The only thing that we do ask you, if you can, is to like, subscribe, and share our content, share our clips out, just so it gives us somewhat favorable coverage, maybe with the who knows, probably nothing, but worth a shot anyway.
Right.
But we definitely do appreciate everyone who has given to us over the past nearly 4 years now, and anyone who has given to us at any point makes it to Hall of Fame. Those of you who are highlighted are like our super fans who give generously, and your name will appear in our closing credits of the show. So as always, thank you for your support. We love you. And yeah, we really appreciate whatever support you're able to offer us. So yeah, thank you, fam. We love you.
All right, let's get to our first one.
All right. So
why you gotta make people think about pie? You gotta make people think about pie. All right, they just had a bunch of pie for Thanksgiving. You got slicing out pie wedges. That could be pumpkin or sweet potato. You know,
like, not a fan of either or of those pies.
Who are these people?
Pecan, like a little pecan pie.
Wait,
hey, Steph, appreciate you for happy holidays.
Thanks for all you do. $5, thank you.
Whoa, Snork for $10.
$10, thank you.
Y'all are so nice today.
You guys are really generous, so thank you.
Yeah.
We haven't even started the show really yet. But thank you both as we start the segment. So this was underreported severely. And me being a teacher, I'm like, well, you're all going to hear about it anyway. But I found a story that I think might give some significance to this in terms of the Native American community, because we never talk about them at all. And plus, it's, as I said earlier, it's Native American Heritage Month. Plus, it's also Thanksgiving. Typically, we think about the Native Americans during this time. So I think it's a good way to kind of bring those two bridges together, so to speak, in terms of current politics and in terms of a community that gets no love whatsoever. So I found this first clip from Instagram. It could have been a TikTok. I forgot who this was. Sorry. But this guy gives a brief explanation in terms of what just happened with the Department of Ed this week. And that should give you context in terms of, we're going to go into the Native American community and how they're affected. We'll go into that afterwards. So this guy will give us a general rundown of that. So you can play.
Okay. I don't think people understand what just happened, because this is one of the biggest moves the Trump administration has made, and it's barely even getting coverage. Donald Trump has officially begun dismantling the entire U.S. Department of Education. Not talking about it, not proposing it. He's doing it. Here's what they're doing, and it's insane. They're carving up the education department and shipping its core responsibilities to totally different federal agencies. K-12 education programs being moved to the Department of Labor. College and university programs, also the Department of Labor. Native American education, shoved into the Department of the Interior. Foreign language programs, handed off to the State Department. Childcare and medical education programs, dumped into Health and Human Services. This is not a restructuring. This is not a reform. This is the first real step into Trump's long-stated goal to eliminate the education department entirely. And here's the part nobody's talking about. He's doing it without Congress. They're using obscure contracts, the Economy Act, to outsource the work to other agencies behind the scenes. That way, the department collapses from the inside out without a single vote. This has never been done in modern U.S. history. A president trying to dissolve a cabinet-level agency unilaterally? That is a massive constitutional fight waiting to happen. During private briefings, officials refused to rule out moving even more, including special education and federal student loans. Yes, special education, student aid, your grants, your kids' services, all of this could be moved out of the education department completely. And remember, they already used the shutdown to slash the agency's workforce and fire employees. This is happening during chaos, while the public is distracted and they are hoping nobody notices. Whatever you think about the Department of Education, love it or hate it, this is one of the biggest federal power shifts in decades, because this isn't draining the swamp. This is dismantling the system that oversees every school district, every college student, every teacher, every kid. And they're doing it by executive maneuvering, not democracy. People should be way louder about this.
Yeah, it's not lost on me that how K-12 is being moved into the Department of Labor.
Yes. And do you know why? That. Have you learned why? Like,
well,
there was a thing I saw about, they're also wanting to increase like school hours everywhere. Right?
Right.
And like have it over the summer and have it over the whatever. Right. This is their idea of a daycare system, right? This is, school is an education. It's so that your kids have somewhere to go while you slave away to capitalism. That's right. That's what they're turning all this into.
I think even with that, it just kind of brings back to the age when children were used as labor.
Yeah.
So it's not like during the Industrial Revolution and all that. So like, it's not lost on me that in a lot of ways, that's kind of a regression. And shout out to Handsome Snake, who is Angel, who is a colleague on the network, said Linda McMahon is aiding the administration in destruction. So she's, I know she's
McMahon's wife.
Yeah, WWE. So obviously someone who has no right heading this up. But I can argue for basically almost every single head of the department, and not to say that many were qualified, but they all had their issues that I've had issues with.
Yeah.
But this chick in particular really has no right being there.
No. I mean, this is the type of math education you'd get from her.
I got 141 2/3 chance of winning.
That's, I mean, you just get like, it's just a whole fucking stupid nonsense theater. They're literally throwing kayfabe actors into this. It's very funny.
But in a way, this kind of makes me mad again because, you know, should be a bigger story than it is. But as I said earlier, we're all like, I see online people are crashing out over Marjorie Taylor Greene. People are crashing out over Soham and Donnie right now. And like those two are definitely like have, you know, saturated the press right now, especially given Marjorie Taylor Greene's, you know, retirement from Congress or resigning from Congress, rather. Meanwhile, this is happening, and this has not gotten not really any mainstream attention as far as I saw. So, so given that, and this guy who was in that Instagram clip kind of mentioned it a little bit,
right?
But this affects the Native American community. This move, as he said, that their subdivision is being moved into the Department of the Interior. And I found this story on Popular Resistance. This was written by Levi Rickert. I felt, again, one, Native American History Month. Two, given that it's Thanksgiving and we talk about Native Americans, I felt this was very appropriate, especially what's happening now. So he writes, education dismantling ignores tribal nations. So so he continues, while I get myself situated. As Congress weighed releasing the Epstein files last week, the Trump administration quietly announced plans to dismantle the U.S. Department of Ed, shifting programs that serve Native students to other agencies without consulting a single tribe. Call it what you want, a strategic distraction, a bureaucratic reshuffling, or business as usual for this administration. For Indian country, it's a violation of federal law. Tuesday's announcement transferred key programs that serve Native students from the Department of Ed to the Departments of the Interior and Labor, with additional programs reassigned to Health and Human Services and the State Department. This sweeping overhaul directly affects Native students, at every level, from elementary classrooms to tribal colleges and universities. Yet the administration failed to do the one thing federal law and basic respect require: consult with tribal nations. No one the fuck would they do that, but I digress. Tribal consultation, government-to-government dialogue between tribes and federal agencies simply didn't happen. For Indian country, this is decisions made about us without us. The lack of consultation is not an oversight. It is a breach of trust and treaty obligations. It is a breach of trust. Oh, he did that twice. Once again, the federal government is making choices that will shape our children's education and our future while refusing to honor the sovereign-to-sovereign relationship it professes to uphold. The American Indian College Fund, one of the strongest national advocates for Native higher education, raised alarms about the plan this week. The College Fund noted that these programs, including the Office of Indian Education, play vital roles supporting Native students, Native-served institutions, and the National Advisory Council on Indian Education. Moving programs is not just a matter of shifting files and staff. When authority is transferred without clear planning, without accountability, and without meaningful dialogue with the people most impacted, the risk is stark. Native students will pay the price. The federal government holds a unique legal responsibility to provide education to Native people. This obligation isn't symbolic. It is written into treaties that tribes negotiated in good faith, often ceding millions of acres of land in return for basic services, education among them. Those treaties are the supreme law of the land. But at this moment, as in too many others, the federal government is acting as if those agreements are optional.
I'm sure it's not the first time. You know?
Sure. The administration said the reorganization will improve efficiency and give states more control over school policy. But states are not parties to treaties with tribal nations. They have no legal obligation to us, no trust responsibility, and, in many cases, long histories of marginalizing Native students. To outsource federal obligations to states or to agencies unprepared to handle the complexity of Native education is not reform. It is abandonment. Even more troubling is the plan to move oversight of Native post-secondary programs to the Department of the Interior. That department already oversees the Bureau of Indian Education, an agency that struggles with chronic staffing shortages, outdated facilities, and persistent academic gaps. Adding more programs without new resources, clear timelines, or tribal input risks worsening an already fragile system. The administration's failure to consult tribes is not just a procedural lapse, it reveals a deeper disregard for Native sovereignty and self-determination. Consultation is not a courtesy. It is a legal requirement grounded in decades of federal Indian law and policy. When the government makes decisions that affect tribal citizens, tribal governments must be at the table, not informed after the fact. Time and time again, Indian country has seen what happens when education decisions are made without us. Policies crafted in Washington, distant from our communities, have produced generations of inequity, underfunding, and lost opportunities. Today, Native students remain among the most underserved in the nation. Tribal colleges and universities, institutions created by tribes to provide culturally grounded, community-driven education, operate on shoestring budgets. Many struggle to secure adequate funding year after year. The last thing they need is more instability from federal restructuring pushed through without consultation. The National Congress of American Indians condemned the plan to dismantle the Department of Ed. NCAI called the move reckless, politically motivated, and a direct threat to Native students, tribal sovereignty, and the federal government's trust and treaty obligations. Let us be clear. This is not just an administrative change, it's an attack on the fundamental right of Native students to a quality education that reflects their identity, history, and sovereignty, said NCAI President Mark Maccaro. The trust and treaties responsibilities of the United States are not optional. Dismantling the Department of Ed is a betrayal to Native nations and future generations. NCAI noted that over 90% of Native youth attend public schools, many of which rely on federal resources like Title VI and Johnson O'Malley funding to support Native language preservation, cultural education, and academic success. Eliminating the federal agency responsible for delivering and safeguarding those resources will further marginalize Native students and destabilize tribal education systems. Indian country has been clear. Any change to our education systems must be developed with tribes, not imposed upon them. Consultation is the bare minimum. True partnership is the standard tribes deserve. Until the federal government lives up to that promise, Indian country will continue to raise its voice loudly, consistently, and unapologetically. And I cannot read what that is.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
In Windiman, that's what I'm going to go with.
Sure. Okay. We are all related. And I think that's key in terms of, this article is kind of focusing on Native students, but this move affects all students.
Which
basically any marginalized community.
The Johnson O'Malley funding titles, I could be wrong, but I think that's the Code Talkers thing.
Yes.
So like a big deal that, Navajo guys made, right? After the fact.
Right.
So I think I could be wrong on the specifics.
I think so.
But
yes.
I would imagine.
Right.
So
but yeah, I think again it's kind of disappointing that this went, and one, it's disappointing that this has gone underreported. Well, this story aside, but the idea that the Department of Ed is being dismantled, but you would think that the Democrats would make a lot more noise about this, and I haven't heard it.
I'm sure they got told. I'm
sure they got told, but
that's my thing about any of this, and it's stuff that I like bring up to like people, especially like these politicians are just they just sign on the dotted line, right? So like these decisions are being made elsewhere, and by corporations and, you know, like deep state, Israel, all that stuff. It's all connected, you know, but those are who's making the decisions, the real power holders in an oligarchy, right? Like, so, you know, you have to look past like that initial layer of like theater to like, okay, why is this actually happening? You know, we're putting language learning into the State Department. Why would we do that? Like, and that's what I haven't figured out. Like all these, like, of course the labor one makes sense, right? You know, it's like now we're going to turn it into daycare instead of actually giving people fucking paid daycare, which I know even Sanders talked about. Like, you want people to work, give them daycare. Like, you know, makes no sense, but clearly,
or, you know, provide funding to schools that they can support after school programming.
Right.
You know,
that
like
too.
that, you know, one or the other. Like, you know, well, I'm talking about elementary students. Like for early childhood, which is the field that I'm in, it's like, you know, stop making like daycare or preschool so fucking expensive. Like, you know, especially what we have. Well, Head Start is being cut as we speak, but you know, the idea that families can spend as much money as they do on health daycare or preschool, which can, for many of them, can be equivalent to like a fucking mortgage in a house. And then even then, it's like, especially for these private schools, that money is not going to teachers at all. Like they get shit pay. Like most of that money is just going to the upkeep of the buildings in order to house the kids.
Oh, wait till you get to private school fraud down here in Florida, where we've done the most cases of it. That's a whole fun thing. You know, imagine sending your kids to a school that does not exist. Try that. That has happened. You know, wild, but yeah, I'm just curious as to what the end game for all this is. You know, and like it's definitely going to be political football stuff too, which all of this stuff tends to be. You know, Democrats are going to run on it. Republicans are going to run on it. Same thing with ICE, which we'll cover in a bit too. But, you know, it still affects people. Like, so, and we all know, dude, teachers, and you'll get to nurses later as well. Like, since my mother was a teacher for most of her career, like, I mean, dude, she bought every bit of like stationery and, you know, like there's no funding for any of them. Books from like 10 years ago, like, you know.
Yeah. Now granted, I do get, how much did I get this year? I think I got like $300 at the beginning of well, actually I'll get that and I'll get a little bit more in the spring for supplies, but it's not a lot.
No,
like
and you're
I
like
always have.
Your age needs like all the supplies, you know.
Like it's not like they go through paper like candy. Like they go through paper. They go through markers. Like paint.
All the crayons are broken. You know, it's
like, and I'm very fortunate that I have families who have means that are willing and able to give those. But even with that, it's like basic shit, like toilet paper, like paper towels. I go for basically a roll a day or every other day.
Yeah.
And like, I have to ask my parents to support that because, you know, like bleach wipes, like, granted, I don't necessarily have to use bleach wipes, but even then, like I need bleach
things and
like
any of that.
Like I have to ask. Like again, I'm very fortunate that I have families with means that are willing to donate that stuff. But I've been in schools, like especially in low income communities, where I've had to buy that. And like even at my school, granted, the student that I had last year, like, because he was unhoused and you know about this privately.
Yeah.
I bought his snacks. I bought a lot of shit for this kid, because he didn't have it, and his mother didn't have the means to give it to him, or may not wanted to. So I was like, fine, I'll just spend my money to make sure he got, as best as I can, the basic needs that he needed. So yeah, so it's like teachers are already kind of strapped, but then and I'll get into this later, that and there's definitely a lot more issues around this issue that I'll definitely will talk about. But the fact that these public service or health-based programs, degrees, are now considered unprofessional, to the idea now, and it's mostly around loans, with the idea of oh, well, we're just helping you not take out so much money, but, and I'll get more into it later, but it's still the idea of people in public service are usually, depending on where they're at, are spending their money towards these things that are needed for the people that they're serving. And they're not as you're right, they're not compensated for. So I don't know how much money I've given away within the last 20 years of just school supplies, or school-related, classroom-related materials that my kids needed to ensure that they had some type of normalcy and having the things that they needed in order to learn. So, but yeah, so it kind of sucks that, again, thank you for the lane, folks, I guess, to be able to talk about this. But it's kind of not surprising that you think that Democrats would make more noise about it, but they're all focused on the wrong thing, and people even in our space are kind of focused on not on the wrong stories, but hyper focused on the trending stories. Meanwhile, this is happening, and we talk about how we want to take care of our kids. This is going to affect our kids, and you would think that the opposing party would make more noise about this in the way that they kind of did with the ACA. Now, granted, the ACA is dog shit too. But you saw how much noise they made over that, given people's healthcare premiums going up. You would think that they'll also make this kind of much noise in terms of our kids' livelihoods are going to suffer given the dismantling of. And look, and to be fair, I have my issues with the Department of Ed. I do. But at the same time, it's they do offer oversight in terms of ensuring that every child in the country is having a base level of learning and support. And we can make this argument all day long in terms of how effective the program, the department is. But the idea of dismantling it and putting in other departments that have no business, in my mind, dealing with the inequity of the complexities of working with children, especially in my age group, I think is really disheartening. And being done, again, this is illegal, like what Trump is doing. So, and just the fact there's no noise about it, I think is kind of pissing me.
Well, anything else you got to add?
No. Well, as I said, I'll get more into this later in my other story. Because it does connect. But yeah, that's all I got for now. But talking about stories like these, especially the not so popular ones that it's not favorable to YouTube, is why we're demonetized. So if you want to support us financially, in order to keep the show going, if you're watching live, you can, or a segment or whatever, you can scan the QR code you see on your screen, or you can go to the Ko-fi link you see at the bottom of your screen, or if you're in the YouTube chat and we're live, you can type in exclamation point donate, all one word, and the Ko-fi link will pop up and you can donate directly in the chat. You can also go to our description below and donate either through Ko-fi as well as Cash App, PayPal, and Substack. And obviously, we know this time of year is very hard for a lot of folks, especially with Thanksgiving and like the holidays are not basically here, and like doing a lot of preparation, spending time with your families and all that. So the free way to support us is liking, commenting, and sharing our content. Allegedly, that helps us. And make sure you leave a comment. Were you aware of how the Department of Ed is quietly dismantling, how the Trump administration is quietly dismantling the Department of Ed? And I know none of you are aware of what's happening to Native students in particular, but how do you think the decisions that is being made within the Trump administration will affect your students in your schools, in your communities, in terms of what we just read, in terms of what's happening? Again, any marginalized group, I would argue, will be affected by this in particular. So let us know how you feel about this and how you think this will affect your schools. And I'd definitely be interested to have talks with people, especially as a teacher. So let me know. Help us get to free K. We're about, I think, around 350 to the goal. Maybe we can get there by the end of the year, early next year, perhaps. Help us out with that by subscribing and all that. And thanks for watching.
Yeah. Cool. To the chats, Boy Wonder. Stephanie said this is the first time hearing of this. What else we got? Over on the Substack, I've got the Talking Wombat saying Department of Labor should not be administering our education. It is prepping kids for work. Yep.
Well, I would argue they're doing, schools are doing that anyway. It's just more blatant. So, it's just a lot more obvious now. But as a teacher, I'm saying this, we're not prepping our students to discover truth or challenge them in terms of fighting the system. We're training them essentially to be cogs in the machine, which I especially am extremely aware of. And I'm doing what I can to break that, but there's only so much power I have, at least right now, in that.
Yeah. Snorky says, my grandmother grew up on an Indian reservation. After the Spirit Lake attack, they surrounded another reservation with Danish immigrants, so if there was unrest, the immigrants dying would buy time. Well.
Wow.
Ugh. I wouldn't put it past them, for sure.
Right.
Accord Lord, so now it's just sweep weeks every day. This is the equivalent to the kings and lords removing written word to keep down the serfs. Sure. There's definitely a game at foot, for sure.
The Reverend Joe Blank, I'm here from a government agency that I can't say which one, though, for obvious reasons. Yeah.
I mean, MK Ultra is what he replied. He's making some funnies, but
Angel in the chat.
Go ahead
with that.
Ozzy judge a nation on how it treats its youth and elderly.
Yep.
You had Angel,
I went to a special ed school throughout my schooling, and if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to graduate high school. Yeah.
I mean, where's that going to get moved to?
Right. SPED is Department of Health.
Oh, great. RFK is going to do such a good job. You're not going to get Tylenol in special ed. That's what's going to happen.
Right.
Oh, okay. What a shit show, dude.
It is.
Anyway, on to other news. So you probably didn't hear about this, but I found this article, and immediately caught my attention because of my knowledge of the Louisiana penal system. Not very, very good. One of the worst systems in the country. Angola itself is an actual plantation. So, if you want to go pick cotton, do crime in Louisiana. That's how this works. Or don't do crime, drive while black. That's how it works there, right? But
sure.
You can, I found this ridiculous. So Louisiana, of course, makes it impossible to get parole if, that does not exist there. But now it's fast tracking that to deport them. So clearly we're trying to make room in our overcrowded prisons by sending them elsewhere. Which I just find this incredibly ironic when Trump used to accuse Mexico of sending their criminals.
Right.
It's just the irony.
Every accusation is a confession, as they say.
So we're going to get into Jeff Laundrie. Missing that U in there, dog. Got to put it back. So he eliminated parole for prisoners arrested after August 1st and tightened eligibility rules for those already in prison. Then he set all of that aside for one group, undocumented immigrants. Why? To have them deported. So, one by one, the prisoners, all immigrants, appeared briefly over video before a special panel of the Louisiana Parole Board. The August hearings were unusual in a state that, under Republican Governor Jeff Laundrie, has made it increasingly difficult for prisoners to get early release. Unlike normal parole hearings, the board didn't grill the prospective parolees about their crimes, ranging from car theft to vehicular homicide, to gauge their remorse, nor did it review their disciplinary records to determine if they posed a threat to public safety, and no one was present to represent or speak on behalf of their victims. In fact, most of the 9 men, clad in black and white striped jumpsuits or plain orange ones, did not say a word beside their names and inmate numbers. Only one was even eligible for parole. But in each case, the 3-member panel voted unanimously for release after just a few minutes of consideration. Today, you've been paroled, panel chief Steve Prater said at the end of every hearing, to go straight into an ICE facility for deportation from the United States. Some thanked the board, others sat stone-faced or simply nodded. These days, a 100% grant rate is unheard of for the Louisiana Board of Parole, where annual parole rates previously stood around 50%. In the 2 years since Laundrie became governor, less than a quarter of those eligible have been paroled. Laundrie, a former police officer and sheriff's deputy who served as Louisiana's attorney general until 2024, has blasted early release programs as an insult to crime victims, insisting that anyone who was convicted in Louisiana should serve the entirety of their sentence. He pushed Republican lawmakers to eliminate parole entirely for those arrested after August 1st, 2024, and to impose strict eligibility requirements for those already in prison. Great guy, right? But this year, the same legislator tossed all of that aside for one category of prisoner, immigrants without legal status. With mass deportations a key policy priority for Donald Trump, Republican-led state and local governments have taken aggressive steps to deliver. In May, Laundrie signed an order seeking to crack down on criminal illegal aliens by granting the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections and other state agencies the authority conducts certain immigration and customs enforcement duties. In June, Louisiana lawmakers created an expedited alien removal process through the special parole panel that passed with a little notice during the last legislative session. They had the ability to release a lot of people to parole, and they're choosing to only do it for this specific group, but it's because it's politically popular, said Bridget Geharty, senior counsel with the MacArthur Justice Center, a Chicago-based legal nonprofit focused on prison reform. At least 2 other Republican-led states have recently put in place similar initiatives to parole and deport prisoners without legal status. South Dakota paroled 10 immigrant prisoners to be deported over the summer. In Oklahoma, Republican Governor Kevin Stitt announced in February that the state had identified about 525 prisoners subject to deportation. Since the August 27th hearings in Louisiana, at least 2 of the 9 men paroled have been deported, while 2 others from Vietnam are being held at a newly designated immigration detention facility on the grounds of the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. According to ICE, neither ICE nor the Landry administration would answer questions about the locations of the 5 other parolees or whether they are being deported to their home countries of Honduras, Mexico, and Nicaragua. On September 21st, ICE's regional office in New Orleans posted a photo of one of the parolees, Samuel Lara Garcia, handcuffed in front of a staircase leading to a plane. The agency identified Garcia as a citizen of Honduras. Garcia, aged 36, had pleaded guilty to negligent homicide and obstruction of justice in a 2020 shooting after an argument at a Baton Rouge house party. He was sentenced to 13 years in 2024, but had served less than 2 years in prison before being paroled. I mean, I've had a lot worse Baton Rouge house parties. You know what I mean? Like, shit goes down, dude. You gotta be careful out here. Fucking sure. A U.S. citizen convicted of the same crime or any crime in Louisiana today would not be eligible for release under the new parole laws championed by Landry. ICE declined in an interview request with Madison Sherhan, a former Landry administration official who, as deputy ICE director, signed the partnership agreement between the agency and the Corrections Department. The Landry administration did not respond to questions about the new parole panel or the governor's broader executive order, which was named Operation Go. Bad name. Pick a different name. Bad. Bad. One member of that task force is Keith Conley, police chief of Kenner, a New Orleans suburb and one of the first Louisiana cities to formally partner with federal immigration authorities during Trump's second term. They would. He praised the legislation that created the deportation panel in a recent interview. Paroling and deporting prisoners who are illegally in the United States frees up jail space and saves tax dollars, Connolly said, so it just seems like a win-win. Under the new law, the deportation panel operates unbound by the restrictions and responsibilities placed on the regular parole process. A parole board is normally tasked with deciding whether prisoners are ready for release based on a number of factors, including their behavior behind bars, efforts to rehabilitate, whether they pose a risk to the public, and victims' opinions. During the August hearings, however, the board was not required to abide by the eligibility restrictions imposed on the legislature last year, including the requirement that prisoners have clean disciplinary records for at least 3 years and a low-risk score as determined by an algorithm. Parole granted for the purpose of deportation is fundamentally different from discretionary parole granted to individuals who have demonstrated readiness for community supervision, Francis Abbott, executive director of the parole board, told Verite News and ProPublica. In these cases, the individuals are present in the United States unlawfully and have been convicted of criminal offenses. To be eligible to appear before the new panel, prisoners must have a federal deportation notice and not have been convicted of a sex offense or a violent crime that carries a sentence of more than 10 years. Louisiana law does not consider negligent homicide to be a violent crime. Christopher Walters, deputy executive counsel with the Landry administration, said at a May legislative hearing that the state has identified about 390 prisoners who might be eligible to be paroled and deported. The Corrections Department would not verify or update that number. It's an ongoing process to determine eligibility for this specific legislation, Derek Ellis, the department's deputy secretary, said in a recent interview. There are no more hearings scheduled for the remainder of the year, according to the parole board. Unlike typical parolees who are required to check in regularly with their parole officers and prohibited from unauthorized travel, those paroled to be deported are not placed under any supervision. Once deported, they were released with one stipulation: do not return to the United States. Louisiana law says those who do return will be forced to serve the remainder of their sentences, but that may not be enough of a deterrent. Margaret Hay, first assistant district attorney with the Jefferson Parish District Attorney's Office, which prosecuted one of the deported men, said prosecutors are concerned parolees convicted of violent crimes may very quickly just be right back in this country. There's no guarantee that our border will remain as secure as I believe that it might be now, said Hay, who nevertheless said she supports the initiative. ProPublica Verite News contacted the embassies and consulates for Mexico, Nicaragua, Honduras, and Vietnam to learn how these countries manage the repatriation of deportees whose U.S. prison sentences were cut short. None responded to multiple phone calls and emails. So, wonder why. Another issue at play is that Louisiana law requires the parole committee to notify victims about upcoming parole hearings, provided they are registered with the Louisiana Victim Outreach Program, a state initiative that provides support services. Many victims of crime, especially those who are undocumented, fail to register for or are unaware of the state program. The parole board said there were no registered victims in the 9 cases that appeared before the deportation panel in August. Several local prosecutors said they tried reaching the families of the 6 victims who had been killed by 4 of the paroled men, 3 of whom were charged with vehicular homicide but had trouble making contact. ProPublica and Verite News could not reach any of the victims or family members of deceased victims in the cases involving the 9 men. Landry, a Trump ally, has long been an immigration hardliner during his 8 years as Attorney General, which began a year before Trump's first term as president. Louisiana's capacity for detaining immigrants expanded from 2 facilities in 2016 to 8. That positioned the state to become a key partner in Trump's mass deportation agenda during his second presidency, as we've seen and talked about previously. In September, Landry and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem unveiled a 9th immigration detention facility known as the Louisiana Lockup, located in the former solitary confinement wing of the Louisiana State Penitentiary at Angola. Which, the fact that that sentence exists, that we're going to put a thing into the solitary confinement wing of Angola as a completely different facility, like one of the worst solitary confinements of like any prison. Anyway, this is where Hoang Huy Pham, one of the 9 men paroled in August, is being held as he awaits deportation to Vietnam, the country his family said he fled as a child refugee during the Vietnam War. Pham's daughter, Theresa, who asked to be referred to only by her first name because she works for the federal government and fears retaliation, said her father called her in June to tell her he was going to be paroled at the end of August after spending 20 years in prison for a long history of car theft. He told her he would live in a halfway house before rejoining the family in Baton Rouge. Theresa called, she said her elderly grandfather, Pham's father, was looking forward to him finally getting out of prison to help with his care. Then in September, Theresa received another call from her father. This time, he told her he had been transferred to Angola to await deportation. That 5-minute call was the last time Theresa said she heard from him. He finally got out, but you're going somewhere else where you're not supposed to be, Theresa said. It's a false hope. Herwin Pineda was the only prisoner to tell the parole board in August that he wanted to be deported back home. He wished to return to Nicaragua to be with his ailing elderly mother in her final days, he told the board through an interpreter. Pineda, who had previously been deported while on probation, had served less than a year of 7-year sentence on charge of cocaine possession. Nevertheless, the board granted his request. You're a serious dope dealer, Prater, the panel chair, told him. We don't want you back. ICE took him into federal custody that day and deported him to Nicaragua on September 12th. Thoughts, Care Bear?
Well, it's Louisiana, so as you said, this isn't surprising. But as I said earlier, it's like accusation is a really confession. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but I think this also kind of speaks to, as you said, the how our prison system is basically jam-packed right now. So it's like, okay, what we're going to do is, why not just deport them to countries that they may or may not have any relation to, and just to get rid of them, you know? So it's well, here's the thing. It's like, I think because people are like, oh, they're prisoners, so immediately the idea is like, oh, they're bad people, so
Yeah.
they're subhuman. So I think there's a lot of that tendency to think about that, but even with but we're seeing it with ICE right now. It's like,
Yeah.
like these could be very well people who, for whatever reason, may end up in jail, and for many of them, especially if you're black, could be, like you could be in prison for something petty. Whereas, like, if it were a white counterpart, they may not or if you have money, you may not necessarily be in jail for that same thing. So there's a lot of inequity in regards to how we deal justice. I think that's tales all the time in this country. Well, in the West in general, like, if you have money, if you're the right melanin, then like you might be able to get off. Versus if you're a person of color, it may not be so much. But it's now the added bonus now of like, we're not going to give you due process in terms of your crime. If assuming you have, we're just going to deport your ass to another country, just so like we can just get rid of you. But then it's just the idea of like, oh, we're relieving the oversaturation of our prison. But again, this kind of brings up, the idea of defunding the police in a sense, because I wouldn't, and I don't know statistics off the top of my head, but I would argue that the people who are in prison now do not necessarily need to be in there.
A lot of them.
A lot of them. And it's like, and we also have to question why many of them are like, some are just there mostly because to not be at risk of living in poverty. Like, prison is like, you get food, you get shelter. So for some people, it could be like a safe place to be. So they would rather commit a crime if they need to in order to feel somewhat safe in a prison. Like, that's kind of the thinking that some people go through. But then it's like, why are people thinking that prison might be the last resort? Because being out in the world is just so bad. Like, that just kind of speaks to, I wouldn't say necessarily the prison system, but just the failure of how people who are not wealthy live. And like, they're not feeling like they can survive. So for them, prison might be the only way that they're able to get basic
3 meals in a bed, right?
That's a problem. Right.
Yep. Just sad. I mean, the for-profit prison industry is part of this too. It's just disgusting, So
right. And then if we want to go back, if I want to bookmark in terms of my story earlier, and then probably my story coming up next, it's the idea of like, and I heard this, I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago. I think I mentioned it on the show before. And I think, and someone reminded me of like, because this was a presentation where basically mostly teachers were. And someone reminded me, like, you could tell by your zip code where people are going to end up.
Yeah.
And like the idea that in certain zip codes, you're more likely to go to prison than you are to have, I don't know, like a white collar job. Like, I think just speaks again to the inequity and almost kind of like the racism that exists in this country still is in regards to, for certain people or for certain demographics, like they're putting in prisons versus putting in schools, putting in community-based programs, putting in job preparation programs, putting in the very things to kind of get these people away from the prison system versus, basically funding the means of ensuring that you're going to get there. And and that's scary to me. Like, this idea that where you live is going to dictate more than likely where you're going to end up, and due to what is around you that you may or may not be affected by, that will bring you to jail. And again, I don't think that's talked about enough, especially given, like the mainstream discourse in this country in of itself. Again, this relates to children. Like, the idea that children are doomed, basically, seemingly so, given where they live, is, I mean, even with that, just thinking about this a little bit more, like, I had to remind an state board of ed person this, because he's been like, cops, we need more cops, and like cops around schools or whatever. I'm like, I remember a time when there were no metal detectors in schools,
right?
Even the bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, I never
like
had an officer growing up.
Right. I went to private school like later on, but like even at my worst, like in my town, like it's still bad, but like back then it was like probably, I think you're probably maybe worse now, but like like my town middle school and high school was not good. But even in those places, I didn't see, there weren't, like detectors. There weren't like SROs, weighing at the door, like to ensure their safety. Like, again, this was in the 90s. So like, and I'll argue, especially living in the New York metro area, like crime was, not to say I didn't see it, like, I mean, especially given where I lived, but there was issues abound, but there was still like, at minimum, somewhat of a feeling of safety going into certain places, depending. So the idea now that I would argue now, over 30 years later, things have gone worse, I would say. Like, kind of speaks to how we've just kind of let ourselves, this country has let itself go in terms of, again, not taking care of our kids, to that, the certainty of prison is very real for many folks. And now the added bonus of, oh, we're just going to deport you because we're full. And since you're a prisoner and you've allegedly, you don't have any rights at all. Like, we don't need to hear your side in terms of why you're here. We're just going to send you off to another country and call it a day. And, like, there should be some type of humanity even in the midst of the prison system, which we don't have here. It's just like, you're an animal, we're done with you. Which, like, and I basically believe in the idea that all people, depending on the circumstance, are worthy of redemption. Like, prison should be that.
Extreme lack of like mental health, like facilities and funding and whatever. That's pretty much, it's just, the prisons are now the asylum, for a lot of that. It's the only time that these people actually get the care they need, like, and even that's like, so, I mean, we've all heard the asylum horror stories, like, it's just as bad now, except now when things happen, go in the hole, solitary confinement, which, like, literally a bunch of places have called that torture, so, I mean, yeah, it's just a shitty story, but figured it was worth bringing, so, but talking about these things is certainly why we're demonetized. So You can scan that QR code on your screen or go to code-v.com/Indie News Network, and you can leave a little $1 for us there. We appreciate it. But if you can't do that because you're one of the poors like ourselves, just like and subscribe, share the video, leave a comment, let us know what you think. Why is this happening? Feel free to let us know. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Whew. Well, how's chat holding up? Chat, you doing okay?
While y'all cooking, let me know.
Yeah, I saw Angel done pulled his bird and all that. Got that all done. The Cord Lord was drooling about chocolate pecan pie. Or blackberry. You know, blackberry pie sounds nice. But what else we got?
I actually just bought some pecan pie. I might have some after this.
Yeah. Hold on.
That's my deserved choice.
Louisiana is so fucked. Sad to know, says a Cord Lord. Yeah, I mean, Job Corps was initiated in 1964 by President Lyndon B. Johnson as a key program within his war on poverty, with the goal of providing vocational and educational training to disadvantaged youth.
Yeah.
Oh, he was talking about Vietnam. If I recall, Jobs Corps started then. Why? Because of the shit education system and lack of jobs. So we are doomed to repeat it, usually. But yeah. Corlett says, Reef, you ain't lying. Them Southerners get rowdy. Hey, man, and my people, you know, don't fuck around. Don't fuck around. You finding out might commence. You know?
I mean, I have a story, kind of a story about Job Corps. That was kind of, even when growing up, that was kind of the place where, like, if you were bad, considering, like, if you were a bad kid and you were just shit in school, that's where you would go. Yeah. So, you know, so, like, for people who were basically forced to be upwardly mobile, like in my family, like, that wasn't a desirable place to end up. You know, but I had a couple of friends who ended up in Job Corps just because school wasn't for them, and they were out on the street and they got in trouble and they ended up in. Now, one friend in particular who I know who did it, he's kind of MAGA now, but he would say he's not, but he is. But, you know, like, I don't know. Like, but yeah, even growing up, it was kind of like like seemingly so, like among, you know, the community that I grew up with, it was like the degenerates, you know, that would end up there. So it wasn't necessarily a positive place either. So, or at least in my mind, it wasn't considered positive.
Yep. Craziness. Like,
yeah, Cordo is like wrong side of the tracks, Job Corps. Yep. That's
right next to the liquor store, usually. You know,
right? Yeah, that was that's the picture. You know, at least for me.
What was the classic liquor store, gun store, Job Corps, liquor store, gun store, fucking Job Corps?
I never heard that. But
I'm adding the Job Corps bit. Someone who does that bit? One of the comedy schoolers would remember. Liquor store, gun store. I think it was Chappelle. I think Chappelle did that bit. But yeah, it's just craziness, and it's like Louisiana's just all connected to this fuck shittery with ICE and whatnot. Like, and rural Louisianans are the worst politically. The worst. Like, awful. NOLA's nice. You know, people in NOLA, they know what's up. Everywhere else, you know, like Baton Rouge got some people. They're all right. You know, the minute you head to like West Wego, bro, we went too far. Head back out that swamp, dude. You know, like. But anyway, you got a story.
I do. So again, kind of relates to my last story. It does relate to the Department of Ed again. But this one is probably the bigger story of the two. So this is what I found out initially on Twitter. I believe over the weekend. That the Department of Ed have essentially declassified several degree programs. Nursing was the big one, among others. Education is included in that, as they're not considered professional degrees. Now, I think people are kind of confused with what that means. The title professional means. Basically, professional means, in this case, like, and I'm just going to give a layman's term definition for it, but essentially, it's like having a degree but doing extra shit, basically. So, like, for a nurse or like a doctor. Well, I think doctor is the easiest thing because in addition to coursework, you have to do a residency, which is essentially like time on the field where you're actually practicing what you're going to do. And then normally, depending on the job, you might need a license in order to do the job. But in order to do that, you need the academics in order to take the exam or license to get the license in order to do the job. So basically, it's the degree with extra steps. So it's basically a more specialized program designed to help you meet the requirements in order to do a certain job well. So that includes like law, definitely medicine, which I would argue nursing is a part of that, education. So like, you know, so there's a lot more that's kind of built in versus like a general major where it's just like you're just taking the academics.
Right.
Like for a lot of these other degrees, it's academics plus hands-on training.
Right.
In addition
certification
to
and all that stuff on top of that.
All that kind of stuff. So that's why I say
I vaguely remember all this. Then you had to renew that all the time too. You know?
Yes. And more often than not, depending on the degree or the program, like you have to pay for that shit yourself.
Yep.
Like you have to pay, well, obviously with the education, but right. You know? Like usually like your internships or in my teaching practice, they're called practicums, or student teaching. Those are built into the program. So that's part of your schooling. But then, like, as far as the licensure or the certifications, depending on the degree, you have to pay for those out of pocket. And those are generally not cheap. Like, and especially if you fail and you have to take them again, that's money that you're putting out for that. So, so the idea that, you know, so obviously, like, there are a lot nurses in particular that I kind of saw, but definitely, like, the degree programs that have essentially been demoted in terms of being professional, there was a lot of uproar, at least what I saw on Twitter over the last few days, and rightly so, in my opinion. I know you hate Newsweek, but I couldn't find anybody in the media space who talked about this at all. Not surprised. But I do have some other clips that can kind of supplement this article. So hold on, I just need to get there. So this, as I said, this is from Newsweek. This is written by Jasmine Laws, where she reports nursing is no longer counted as a professional degree by Traub administration. So she writes, The Department of Ed has excluded nursing as a professional degree program as it sets about implementing various measures regarding student loans laid out in President Donald Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. The move has sparked significant uproar among nurses and nursing groups, with the American Nurses Association saying, as reported by Nursing World, that limiting nurses' access to funding for graduate education threatens the very foundation of patient care. So there'll be someone who kind of will clarify more of this in a minute. But basically, this move will affect anyone who's looking to get a graduate degree, which, depending on the degree, in order to make more money, as in my case, teaching, they won't let you work unless you have a graduate degree. So that's kind of like the problem that people are having with this, is that graduate funding for these programs will be limited, and often than not, they're expensive.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of places of employment would require you to have a graduate degree in order to have the job. So that's the problem. In a regulatory definition of a professional degree from 1965, nursing was not definitively listed as a professional degree, although the text lists a number of professions, but saying a professional degree is not limited to those mentioned. So we're going to get all to that. There's a girl who I think kind of broke this down, I believe, on TikTok. So we'll get into that later. It is therefore not clear in the text if nursing was previously classified as a professional degree, but now that term is forming part of student loan determinations. Its omission is having an impact. Department of Ed's press secretary for higher ed, Ellen Cleese, told Newsweek, "This is fake news at its finest. The department has had a consistent definition for what constitutes a professional degree for decades, and the consensus-based language aligns with this historical precedent. The committee, which includes institutions of higher education, agree on the definition that we will put forward in the proposed rule. We're not surprised that some institutions are crying wolf over regulations that never existed, because their unlimited tuition ride on the taxpayer dime is over." So why this matters? The change will impact hundreds of thousands of students. There are over 260,000 students currently enrolled in entry-level Bachelor of Science in Nursing programs and around 42,000 enrolled in associate degree in nursing, according to the data collected by the American Nurses Association. Many have warned the move will lead to a significant drop in the number of nurses in the country, impacting healthcare services nationwide. In the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Grad Plus program, designed to help graduate and professional students cover educational expenses, is being eliminated, while Parent Plus loans, student loans available for parents of dependent undergraduate students, are being capped. These measures were brought in with the intention of creating a new and simplified repayment assistance plan, whereby annual loans for new borrowers were capped at $20,500 for grad students and $50,000 for professional students.
Right.
As part of this implementation process, the Department of Ed decided to change the definition of what counted as a professional program, and therefore eligible for the 200,000 aggregate limit available for professional students. The department determined that the following programs were professional: medicine, pharmacy, dentistry, optometry, law, veterinary medicine, orthopedic medicine, podiatry, osteopathic medicine, podiatry, chiropractic, theology.
I fucking hate this shit. Go
and
continue.
Clinical. And look, well, I'll say this.
Charlatans.
I mean, look, as I graduated with a theology degree. Little known fact about me. Well, I was double ed. I was elementary and theology. Like, I even wanted to be a pastor or teacher.
Yeah.
Teacher one. But like,
you made the right choice. You know,
probably in hindsight, sure. But but I'm sorry, but unless it's these fake churches that give you like a title or special letters before or after your name to connotate like your status within the faith, I guess.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to be nice.
Deacon Jones.
It's not as strict or not as involved as I would say. Look, if you end up getting a Master's of Divinity or whatever, fine. That's one thing, but it's not like a nurse or a lawyer or a doctor who has to go through like hoops in order to get a job, essentially. So and you can, and we like our family is smart. You know why they did this, like so. But it's just kind of funny that theology is a part of. Look, I could make the argument maybe that any grad degree should be considered, all regardless, should be professional degrees, maybe. But again, a lot of these other specialized programs, law, medicine, education, whatever, often not, there are more strings attached in order for you to have a job. So theology, sorry, to me, and I'm saying this as, again, holding a degree in theology, that doesn't count to me. Or it doesn't have as strict or stringent of requirements in order for you to be a pastor or a minister of a church, say. So, but again, we know why we did that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the evangelical base.
It also,
that
to me,
this administration is definitely catering to.
Reminds me of like the whole, for religion to control, you need people dumb. So let's underfund the teachers and fund the pastors.
Right?
Like,
right.
Sure.
And again, if you're going a Master's of Divinity or whatever, that's one thing. But like, I don't know that many pastors, at least in my time in the church, that had a master's degree. I mean, I may have known a few, but not that many. So if they studied theology at all in undergrad, which again, like many pastors may not have. So especially maybe in your neck of the woods. So not to sound stereotypical, but
no, you're right.
But anyway, I digress. This means that physician assistants, nurse practitioners, physical therapists, and audiologists were excluded from the list. One nurse posted through the IVs by the Sea's TikTok account, a clinic offering mobile IV hydration and aesthetic services in New Jersey. I actually did not know that was a thing, like mobile IV hydrate. Like I saw that at a party.
Concerts and parties and shit. Yeah.
Parties. Yeah. But that was new to me until like last year. I'm like,
oxygen
there was a mobile IV
with
thing.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that was new to me. I was like, you can actually do that. But I guess it makes sense. But it's like, I never saw that.
Yep.
But anyway.
Have a hangover, go over there.
Right. 10 years of schooling, $210K in debt, 15 years of ER and trauma experience, which include preventing physicians from making errors at 3 a.m. And now my degree isn't considered a professional degree. Cool. She also said that the country would be short by 1 million other nurses by not providing them with the same reimbursement on their education and training as other medical professions. With a cap on federal student loans, fewer nurses will be able to afford graduate nursing education, such as master's and PhD degrees. Olga Yakutseva, a professor of nursing and business of health at Johns Hopkins, told Newsweek. She added that these degrees allow nurses career paths to organizational leadership, ability to diagnose and prescribe medications, training to lead independent research, and credentials to teach at institutions of higher ed. She said that this in turn will impact the capacity of the U.S. nursing programs and reduce the numbers of new nursing graduates at the baccalaureate and associate degree levels.
Yep. Go do
that's
the
it.
thing. Oh, that's it? Cool.
I think, yeah, that's it. There was more to it, but it was just like I didn't think. So, so again, just to clarify, so this is from @DarkSideAdvocate. So this is the list of essentially the degrees that have gone demoted as non-professional now. So education, which includes teaching master's degrees, so me, nursing, social work, public health, physician assistant, occupational therapy, physical therapy, audiology, speech language pathologist, business masters, engineering masters, counseling and therapy degrees.
Yeah.
And so
social work, public health.
So
yeah. All
public services essentially has been, and I also feel like this might also kind of play a part in student loan forgiveness as well, because many of these degrees would count towards getting some type of forgiveness,
and now it might not.
Might not. Well, people will not be able to afford doing these programs to begin with,
right?
Because especially again, and I'm just saying this as a teacher, like, look, back in the day, like this was over 20 years ago, like when I was just starting out, like when I was in undergrad, back then it was like rich, like affluent communities will require you to have a master's in order to teach. Like you can get away back then with having a bachelor's and being able to teach right out of college. Not the case anymore. Now you need at least 3 years experience and a master's in order to teach at pretty much, at least in Northeast, like teaching out of school now. So now you have to go, especially if you want to be a teacher, you have to get a graduate degree. You have to take out more loans potentially in order for you to get said degree, and again, depending on the state, relatively for not much more money than you would if you were getting, if you just came out with a bachelor's in of itself. So, but again, it's still the idea of like, and there's more that I'm going to say about it later, but yeah, it's just kind of, here's my point. Like, I think people are freaking out over, essentially, in my opinion, the loss of the title of professional. And to be fair, I don't care. Like, it's not as if, like, for me, I'm going around people basically being like, I'm Collin Radix-Carter, M.Ed. Like, because I have a master's, I don't look. I live in DC. Everyone has a fucking master's or a doctorate, so it means nothing here. So, so the title. It's funny though, because it's like even like in my, like a couple of people like that I kind of work with, like insist on calling themselves, I'm Dr. So and so. I'm like, shut up. Like, like you're not that special, like in terms of education, having a doctorate, especially like
a couple more years,
right?
Like,
well, so especially with the people, no offense, that I work with, but it's like whatever. No diss, but but at the same time, but so I think what I'm seeing online is that people were upset over the title, but I think but it's not, and we talked about this, maybe last night, if not the night before, this is not the core issue. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring this up, because I think people are up in arms of like, oh, we're not professional, but yeah, you need the loans in order to get the education. But that in of itself is the problem. Like, why in the fuck is it so expensive to get these programs to begin with? So let's start there. Like, why do we have to take out loans at all?
Capitalism.
Right. And then if you want to go with the Trump administration, because I think in their mind, they're going after the workers. Why aren't you going after the college? Well, they're saying, oh, this will force colleges and universities to cut tuition. They're not. You know damn well they're not going to do that. And it's not as if people are chomping at the bit to become a nurse or a teacher. Maybe a lawyer, sure. Maybe medicine, sure. But like those jobs now will be left to people who can afford it, meaning the elites. So, but no one's jumping at the bit to become a nurse. I'm sorry. Like,
no, it's
look,
a
in fact,
profession.
No, it's a fact. And look, and for me, I take this personally because my mother, my stepmother, my godmother, and many of my aunties on my mom's side were nurses.
Same.
And many of them, were emigrated to the UK because back in the day, there was a nursing shortage, Windrush generation. My mom, I think, was in the latter time of that. But like, they emigrated to the UK to get the training to become nurses in the UK. So, and back then at least, and probably still is now, like nursing, that was guaranteed pay. That was a way for you, if you did a good job, to be able to take care of, like in my mom's case, she had the money because my older brother and sister lived in Trinidad with my grandmother. I wasn't born yet. So like, but she was sending money, but it helped her with the means to be able to send money home to support my older brother and sister and essentially my grandmother, in terms of helping raise them. So it offered, at least back in the day, some stability for folks to be able to send money home in the Caribbean to their families. So, yeah, I mean, and me for being a child of the NHS, in the UK, like that offered, those jobs offered some stability for women. So what I also saw online, obviously, is that the people felt slighted because obviously, like a lot of immigrants end up being nurses, especially Black women. So obviously, like this affects women because like a lot of these degrees are dominated by women, and also women of color in particular. So it's definitely like a lot of talk about online that this is kind of a dog whistle in terms of racism. But as I said, what no one's talking about is the idea of why colleges and universities are charging exorbitant costs in order for you to get educated in these fields, for you to make the money that you get. And that's something that this administration is not talking about. They're not going after the colleges. They're not going after the universities. They're going after the workers in terms of like, oh no, if you're looking to level up, we're just going to cut your funding. So good luck. And maybe the colleges will do something for you. So that's kind of where the discussion, I don't think, is necessarily being had. But I've been having this conversation regardless. Is why is it? It's even now. It's a hindrance for people to even get a degree now. So why and especially in these fields that we are short-handed, education, nurses. Why we gatekeeping these professions when we need more of these people in these? We should be incentivizing people to go into nursing. We should be incentivizing people to go into education, not restricting them.
Is there a more important job than that of a teacher?
Right. And you know what's going to happen? Because I know this is happening in education already. Guess who's going to fill in their spots if they can't? Because colleges, and this is happening already, like colleges, depending, like if certain programs are not being filled at colleges, they will cut those programs. That's happened that happened at my school at Boston College. Like when I was an undergrad there, like you were able to major with a bachelor's degree in early childhood. They don't offer that anymore. Like as an undergrad, you can get that now as a grad, but not many people are going into early childhood. So they cut that program, you know, in undergrad, at least at my alma mater. So like, but the thing that they're not talking about, like if they're not getting the staff that they need in order to fill in these roles, guess where they're going to get them from? They are going to get immigrants who will be willing to take less, and that's going to promote the immigrants are going to take like that. That's going to fuel. That's going to fuel that talking point. So, so I think if anything, Republicans in a lot of ways are doing MAGA, especially, a disservice by doing this, because you're going to affect. You're causing more immigrants to come into the country anyway to fill in the roles that people are not going to do now that they're not getting the funding. But then also you're limiting the well, again, you know, it's a larger discussion. Colleges are charging too much money to have people essentially gatekeep into getting into these jobs that honestly, depending on what it is, do not pay that well anyway.
Right.
So, but that's the thing that I wasn't seeing online. It was just, I think it was more of the knee-jerk reaction. My degree is not professional anymore. I'm not going to be able to take out these loans anymore. Whereas, like, why would you want to take out the loans anyway? Like that and all is the problem.
Yeah. Well, you brought this.
Right. So yeah. So and I forgot to time this, but it's a short enough clip, so I think it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah. So there was a news report on ABC regarding this. This was again, mainstream did report, but again very little. So we'll look at that first. And then, as I said, there's a girl who kind of broke down like the intricacies of the significance of the big beautiful bill and how, like, because the argument is, nursing, you know, the back and forth, nursing wasn't officially in, like, there's just a lot of jargon around that, but she breaks that down. Okay. But let's watch this news clip first.
Back on ABC News Live with this week's social story. That's where we post 3 stories on our social media and let you pick one for us to take a deeper dive into. This week's choices: U.S. Department of Education responding to reports they say falsely claim the agency excluded nursing in its revamped definition of professional degree programs. The latest Real Housewives of Potomac star arrested and accused of stealing thousands in furniture, and where and how to save for Turkey Day. And with 54% here of the vote, you chose nursing no longer being considered a professional degree by the Department of Education. Now, while there's a lot of buzz and concern online and within the medical field, ABC News received a statement by the DOE dismissing reports that it's reclassified or excluded nursing as a professional degree program, saying, quote, the department did not update the federal definition of professional.
These are surgical staplers, by the way. These big long boys.
Right.
Right? Wish I had one. Nurses, if you find me one that after surgery isn't used anymore, send it to me. I will take them.
Right. And hold on 1 second. I do want to say this. Like, if you are nursing with a advanced degree, you're doing the work usually of what doctors do.
Yeah.
So like, and that's especially helpful in like rural states where doctors are not as readily available. Like, you know, even for me in DC, like our school nurse, technically, she's a technician. She's not even fully trained to do the work of a nurse, but she's doing the work. So we're fucked for nurses in the country as is. And now you're trying to gatekeep people to not want to do it? Okay. Continue.
Yeah. Degree to exclude nursing, going on to say the definition never included it. Meanwhile, the American Association of Colleges of Nursing says the Trump administration's attempt to implement several measures outlined in the president's One Big Beautiful Bill will limit the loans student nurses can access. Anjali Kamlani is here to break this all down. Anjali, thank you so much for joining me. Can you clear up some of the confusion here and how it got to this point?
Yeah, we know that, of course, the medical professions have been really pressured in recent past, especially because of the shortage of doctors. And what that's really put is the spotlight on nurses to kind of pick up the slack, if you will. They've been doing more. They've been fighting to do more. State by state, there have been, ways to include and equalize the work and recognize the work that nurses do in clinical settings. And this is why this got triggered into such a hot button issue, because it almost created a step backwards in that fight. For years, we've seen burnout, especially in the post-pandemic era, where nurses now saying about 60% of those, according to the American Nurses Association, of nurses are claiming to feel burnt out. And that trend has continued. We've been seeing over the years that trend. And so the reason why this is important is because if they are disincluded from that list, then it really limits the opportunity for nurses to get licensed and then therefore to earn better. And so you're looking at being put in sort of the general professional category rather than this specialized category. And so that limits their tuition loan amounts. And that's really going to put more pressure if fewer nurses decide to get licensed.
Now, Anjali, where does this leave the states? And how does this affect health professionals in rural parts of the country? Because they're getting affected so much more than other areas of the country.
Yeah, this actually puts even more of a spotlight on that, because as I was explaining about the nurses taking on more of a role, that's especially where they do. More states where they have larger rural areas have really pushed to give nurses more responsibility and more authority on patient care in the past several years. And so if nurses are unable to get those degrees and to move out to or work in these rural areas, that's going to put even more pressure on the ability for individuals to get care in these areas. And so this is really just exacerbating an existing issue.
So what do these new rules say about what students can borrow or the costs future students could face?
Right. So if they were allowed to be part of this list, they could borrow up to $200,000, and so they would be pushed back to $100,000 for the total degree. Now that does fall into the category for some smaller areas. A lower cost could fall into that category, but there are areas of the country where schooling does cost more, and so the annual cost does add up. So that for the whole degree, they would have to borrow up to or close to $200,000. And so this really puts a damper on sort of where you'll see folks being able to get their degrees if they're not included in this category.
All right, Anjali Khemlani, thank you so much for your analysis.
Yeah, so it's like, again, if you're in the Northeast, in my region of the country, it's going to be more expensive to get a degree of nursing than it would be to get a degree of nursing, like, I would argue probably anywhere else in the country. Like, maybe some places in the Midwest will probably be, like, maybe Chicago, but, like, other places, like, in the Midwest or South, like, would be extremely difficult. So to, find a nursing program, especially a credible one. And I'm just thinking, like in Massachusetts, where they have a huge health industry there, like that would be like a desirable place for people to go, like for medicine in general. But like, but if they're not getting the loans in order for them to go to those places, then
right,
those people would be affected. But again, it's still the idea of like these colleges and universities are charging like up the wazoo, in order for you to attend those programs. So you have to take the loans out, and people just accept it. It's like, it's the thing to do. Where the argument is we shouldn't even get to that point, especially given the point, if anything, we should be incentivizing people to go into all these fields where we are kind of strapped right now. So like, but yeah, it's still the idea of like, it's like people thinking like, oh, like again, people are not chomping at the bit to become a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, it's a very like my mom sustained 2 injuries that she had to retire early, because of how patients treated her. So, yeah, it's not like the elites are going to go into nursing. So,
yeah,
so as I said, it'll probably be filled by I don't want to say foreigners, but immigrants who have the education in their countries that are willing to come here for less pay. And you know what? Even I'll just say this as a quick aside before I go to the last clip. Like my former nurse, who actually was a trained nurse at my school, she was working 2 jobs. So she was at my school during the day, but then on weekends she would work at one of the hospitals in DC.
Yeah.
And she quit, and she told me this. She quit because she was like, I don't make enough money. Like working in the district, being a nurse, like she got a job where she was able to make more money.
Moonlighting.
So she's like, bye. Right. So so even like nurses, like it's still the idea, like some of them feel like I have to work 2 jobs in order to make it, which considering like the training that you have to do in order to become a nurse to begin with, I think is ridiculous that even for like we hear among teachers a lot, you know, that often that they take several jobs in order to make ends meet, but like nurses too, you know, are kind of doing the same thing. So even with that, it's not helping. Like, it's a thankless job. You don't get paid, depending on where you are. You may not get, well, depending where you live, you may not get paid well enough for you to survive on that one income. And then to essentially, like I would say in this way, demote your status so that you may not even have the means to have the money to be able to finance your education, I think is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I do want to play this last, I believe this was pulled off TikTok. Again, I do not know this chick, but so she kind of goes into the confusion around the language. And like I said, like, you know, nursing wasn't officially like known as a professional degree or whatever. Like there's a lot of garbage that I think this administration is using to justify the decision. So she breaks it down a little bit here. So yeah, let's play the clip.
A lot of people are confused and spreading a lot of misinformation, having a lot of back and forth about what exactly is going on with nurses no longer being considered a professional degree, including a lot of articles on the internet. So I'm going to clear it up for you right now. When the One Big Beautiful Bill Act got passed, what it did was change our federal student loan system. So previously, up until this goes into effect on July 1st of 2026, people who are currently in graduate school, for medical school, physical therapy school, whatever kind of graduate school it is, you could take out as many student loans were required to pay for your graduate schooling. There was no cap on it. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act changed it so that we would now have a 2-tiered system. People who were considered professional degrees could now receive a lifetime student loan limit between undergrad and graduate school from the federal government of $200,000 and up to $50,000 per year for their graduate training. People who are in graduate degree programs, which have a different definition than professional programs, and I'm going to read you that definition in just a second. People in graduate programs have a much lower lifetime limit, only $100,000 and $20,500 per year. So this is what the big change is. And this.
So again, kind of what I said at the beginning, like, just a normal graduate degree where typically you're just doing some research, it's considered the lower tier versus like the professional, like the law, medicine, all those stuff where you have to do the degree in addition to like internships or on the field training, certifications that cost money, more money in order to do, gets the higher tier. So you understand now, like nursing obviously has more requirements in order for you to do nursing and training, hence the idea that you need more money in order to fulfill those commitments. So that's what so again, she's kind of clarifying here what I said at the beginning. That's why they're called professional degrees. It's like, as I said, the degree with extra work, essentially.
This is what I need you all to really lock into and pay attention to, because it's not permanent yet. It hasn't happened yet. Okay, so this is the original definition of a professional degree, which we were working with up until the proposed change. This is a screenshot from the summer when I made a video about that. Okay, so a professional degree requires both completion of the academic requirements for beginning practice in a given profession, and a level of professional skill beyond that normally required for a bachelor's degree. Professional licensure is also generally required. For examples of a professional degree include, but are not limited to, remember that language, are not limited to, pharmacy, dentistry, veterinary medicine, chiropractic, law, medicine, optometry, osteopathic medicine, podiatry, and theology. Under this definition, the majority of healthcare professionals getting master's degrees and doctorate degrees, like psychologists, speech and language pathologists, like CRNAs, like nurse practitioners, nurse midwives, and so on, we would all fall under this category, and we should be able to access that higher federal loan limit, which is essential because these degrees are very expensive and required to enter practice. And we need the fair federal loan system in order to make it accessible. This is the proposed definition change that came out in October. It is not a law. It is not a bill. It has not been locked in yet. And this is what's going to hurt healthcare professionals that require master's degrees and doctorate degrees. So the new definition proposed of a professional student, a student enrolled in a program of study that awards a professional degree upon completion of the program. A professional degree is a degree that signifies both completion of the academic requirements. A professional degree is a degree that signifies both completion of the academic requirements for beginning practice in a given profession and a level of professional skill beyond that normally required for a bachelor's degree, where professional licensure is also generally required. And here's the language change that is so scary. The next part of the sentence reads, and includes the following degrees. They took out the phrase, but is not limited to, and includes the following degrees: pharmacy, dentistry, veterinary medicine, chiropractic, law, medicine, optometry, osteopathic medicine, podiatry, or theology. So now, instead of anyone who required a master's degree or doctorate degree to enter practice that, otherwise would have met the definition of professional degree, and they have some other qualifiers below it that like describe the nature of a professional degree, nobody else counts except for these 10 professions. Not psychologists, not CRNAs, not nurse midwives, not practitioners, not speech and language pathologists. Nobody except for these 10, because the goal is to cap the amount of loans that they're giving out entirely. And they're really leaving out so many healthcare professionals that need access to these fair federal loans so that we can afford to enter practice. By not including advanced practice nurses like nurse midwives, nurse practitioners, CRNAs, by not including psychologists, speech and language pathologists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and so on in the definition of professional degree, you're going to force people to go to the private market for student loans, just like what people do for undergrad, right? Federal loans have always been capped for undergraduate loans, and it never drove down the cost of tuition. People instead went to the private market, but those loans have higher interest rates and they're more predatory. And we all know that graduate school is even more expensive, right? Even more years of education. In order to get these loans in the first place, people are going to be required to have higher credit scores and have a cosigner in most cases, which is kind of crazy if you're an adult learner. But this disproportionately hurts people who come from low income backgrounds and who might be first generation Americans, because they might not have someone to co-sign with them. Okay, so this is not going to do anything to stem the rising cost of tuition. All it's going to do is ensure the graduate education is for the wealthy. Tying it all in a little bow, one big beautiful bill act got passed. Anyone who takes out their first set of graduate school loans after July 1st of 2026 is now going to have to be defined as either a professional student or a graduate student, right? Professional students get $200,000 lifetime annual limit, $50K per year. Graduate students get $100,000 lifetime limit, $20,500 a year. Most people will now fall under the category of graduate student if this new definition passes. This new definition is not a law, it's not a bill, it is a proposed definition change from within the Department of Education. Things we can do to act on it are to contact the Department of Education directly, or if you have a senator or representative who sits on one of the boards that oversee the Department of Education, you have an opportunity to speak to them, to encourage them to influence the DOE to not go through with this new proposed definition change. Soon, there will be a public comment period open where all of us can comment on it. So I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that. And as soon as it opens up, I will let you know. So please stay tuned for more. But let's please also be very, very clear on what's happening so we can get our definition straight. No one has stripped away nursing from being a professional degree. Nursing is not a graduate degree. Nursing was never really affected by this at all. It does, however, disproportionately affect advanced practice nurses, such as CRNAs, such as nurse midwives, such as nurse practitioners, who are crucial for delivering healthcare all across this country. It also disproportionately affects other healthcare professionals like physical therapists, occupational therapists, psychologists, and more. So we do need to be vigilant about this. We do need to stay on top of it, and we do need to act before this change goes into effect.
Right. So just to kind of clarify what she said there. So again, if you're undergrad, this won't affect you. It's going to affect grad students who are looking to level up on their expertise. And as we said, like certain nurses, especially if you have a graduate level, end up in rural areas where they're able to basically take on the role of doctors in many ways, or end up becoming professors themselves, or able to teach other nurses into the professional whatever, which is needed. I will argue that's needed. So the idea that you're not able to do that is going to put a limit on the economy, if you want to call it that, in terms of, you're going to have fewer nurses having the ability to offer people prescriptions. You're going to have fewer nurses being able to teach other nurses how to become a nurse. So that's going to affect us badly within the profession. But then on a general level, if you want to become a nurse or whatever profession that this affects, if you need extra money, that if you're not able to afford it, depending on what kind of school you go to, you're going to have to take out a private loan, which, as she said, if you are a person of color or if you have no credit, you're not going to get it, or you're going to pay higher interest rate, or you're going to need someone to co-sign on the loan. Like that actually happened to me, like when I was in undergrad. Like my mom had shit credit, like for my student loan. So a friend of ours had to be a co-signer for me, if in the event that I wasn't able to pay my student loans. And that happened several times. Like there were months that I didn't pay that he ended up paying. I remember mom getting mad at me. It's like, why do you pay this loan? Because our friend is paying for you. He was happy to do it because he wanted to ensure that I got the education that I needed. But, but that's kind of the trouble of like taking it. So again, as you kind of played, is all due to capitalism. It's protecting the colleges and universities in so many ways because they're not being forced to lower costs in order to make things a little bit more affordable for people to do these programs to begin with. It's forcing people to go into the banking system, the private banking system, to be able to take out more loans, which is going to make the banks money.
Yeah.
Just getting the basics in terms of what they need as far as their education, or the things that they might need if they want to level up their expertise, especially in certain fields where they're needed. So this is very dangerous, really, ultimately, throughout the country. And as I said, first of all, essentially, you need nurses who are willing to work in rural areas to begin with, because, but especially given, like, as I said, like, certain, like if you're a high advanced level nurse, you're able to do basically the shit that doctors able to do. If they're not able to do that, that's going to affect like rural communities, especially, which again kind of goes along with my first story in terms of the Native American community. They would also be affected in terms of the, like, any marginalized community this will be affected by. So health will be affected, like, and that's again gonna kind of do a shift in the economy in terms of people getting sick. People are not able to get the care that they need, due to, understaffing and whatever else. So it's a mess, so to begin with. So as she said, it hasn't gone into effect yet. It will go into effect next summer if it does go through. But it's basically that slight omission of phrase that's the problem. So because it wasn't explicit in nursing being a part of that list, but it did meet the requirements that they just omitted. That they're like, oh, well, whatever. So, but
yay, capitalism.
Yeah, essentially. That's moral of the story. Basically with every story that we cover. All due to capitalism, all to protect the banks, the donors, the corporations, and take it out on the people. Like, you have no right taking out these loans, but not going after the colleges and universities for forcing people to take out these loans because tuition costs are too high. And they're not making that much money to be able to pay off the loans anyway, or at least it takes them forever and a day in order to pay them if they can. So, yeah, just a mess. But any other thoughts before we shut down the segment?
No, I think you got it.
Yeah, I mean, but again, like, kind of surprised that no one else was talking about this. So again, once again, thank you for giving me the lane to talk about it. But stories like these are why we're demonetized. So if you want to support us, please scan the QR code or go to the Ko-fi link you see in the bottom of your screen. Or if you're in the YouTube chat and we're live, type in !donate, all one word. And the Ko-fi link will come up in the screen that you can click and donate to us directly. And of course, we don't expect your giving. We do thank you for it. But if you're able to, the free way is liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel. And let us know what you think. Were you aware of essentially this demotion in terms for nursing and then other professional programs that would affect is a loan distribution for people who are wanting to go into these fields? And how do you think, especially with nursing, you might be affected? Like, let us know. I'm especially curious, like those of you who live in rural areas, if you're having issues like nurses, working in your communities, like, what do you see could potentially happen with this shortfall of nursing or any of these professional jobs that obviously require more of students in order to work in these fields, that people will not be incentivized to do them? As I said, I think these fields, there should be more incentive. Honestly, I think we should be giving grants, not loans, grants, free money from the government to entice people to go into these fields. But we're not doing that. So, which is sad, but let us know in the comments what you think. And thanks for watching.
Yay. We'll get to that in a second. Mac over on the YouTube said nursing degree definition change along with bringing immigrants to fill the jobs. Americans might be forced to get nursing education in other countries and return to the U.S. after, as is already happening.
That I would also argue would probably happen. I don't think, but I think even with that, that would be people with privilege, because people can't just move to another country in order to study something and then return here. Or if anything, they might just end up staying here. Staying in those countries to work. Like, I mean, given our healthcare system, like, why in the fuck would you want to work in this country anyway? Like, especially if you have a medical or medical degree of any kind. So I think, if anything, if you gatekeep a lot of these professional jobs in this country, you're going to have a huge exodus of people leaving and not returning as well.
Mac adds, I think Cuba welcomes American students to get educated in medicine so they can go back to the U.S. to help their communities. But also mentioned the embargo may have messed with some of that. Accord Lord, I remember my friend's grandpa who owned his own property and was a well-loved dentist telling us in 2002 that dentistry is done. He cried, saying, I save teeth. They just want to pull them. And Accord also at the top of the segment. Hold on. I'll scroll back up. Where was it at? Almost there. My lady is a pharmacy tech. She's required to have 20 hours of CE, $140 every 2 years just to renew. Certification is her requirement, not company.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing that pisses me off, especially with these programs or degrees, is that, especially for the certification or any continuing education, that's what CE means, or any professional development, depending, you have to pay for that shit out of pocket. Like, and they're not cheap. They're not cheap. So it's like, again, building into capitalism, like, they get your money for school, they get your money for certification. I mean, like, your hands-on experience is probably part of your program anyway, but you're essentially free labor, like more often than not. Like, You know, like you're unpaid intern. Sometimes, depending on the degree, like you're an unpaid intern. So
which
shouldn't all the name of experience, right? All the name of experience, so that you're able to get the job later. But yeah, that's essentially what a lot of these practicum or hands-on experiences are: unpaid internships.
Yeah. Anywho's what's it? I think we should get to our last story.
Yes.
So, Collin, I wrote a thing.
You did a thing.
I did a thing. This is going to be about this guy. You're going to find out who that is in a minute. By the name of Victor Marx. You probably haven't heard anything about this guy, right?
Nope.
Well, he is, which let me pull the article up. Here we go. You can find it on the INN newsletter Substack, which you should be following. Link is in the description below. So I just want to zoom these, make sure everything's visible for people. All right. So this guy's now running for the governor of Colorado. The shady military man seems to be in all the right places at all the wrong times. Reef, what do you mean? Reef, what are you trying to say? So, who is Victor Marx, you may ask? Well, he recently decided to run for governor of Colorado. I think this is the thing.
Victor Marx is just amazing. Anti-child sex trafficking all across the world. One of the most powerful ministries, and someone who loves the Lord. I'll tell you what, in a world where it's hard to find strong men, Victor Marx is one of them. So please join me in welcoming the great Victor Marx.
Okay. This is where we start, friends. This is where we start. But listeners, I've been on this guy for a minute before this. So, but I just thought, yep. So this isn't where this story starts for me. At least Victor has been on my radar for quite some time. An endorsement from the now deceased propagandist Charlie Kirk. We'll get to him. Hang on to that. From beyond the grave, mind you, he's putting out this shit like post, anyway, should be enough to cast suspicion. Reader, it may get far, far worse, unfortunately. So, now you guys know me, right? I avoid electoral politics at all costs. This is one of those times where real geopolitics and elected officials cross streams. Some of you know I'm a huge martial arts nerd, guilty. Quite a bit of my YouTube feed is taken up by channels dedicated to the topic. Channels like McDojo Life. If you know that channel, they cover like the weird, like charlatan, the weird women's self-defense thing on TikTok, the, chi energy shielding men who stare at goats, like Frank Dukes, Dim Mock, all that stuff. Some of you people know what I'm talking about. I was watching one of these videos of McDojo Life, and some alarm bells happened, right? In this video, timestamp below, Victor Marx himself, a former Marine, shows up to explain his famous fastest gun disarm, a viral video where Marx disarms two volunteers pointing guns at him at speed, right? So, I mean, we'll take a look at this one. It's a classic one. Now, Collin, as a theology major, right? You might recognize some of this stuff. This to me is like standard youth group demonstration, right?
Sure.
Like that's what it's the guy who tells you that, I was on drugs and then I found the Lord, that kind of shit, right? Yeah. So, but he does this kind of shit.
This is a good time to pray for the rapture. I'm sure I'd be gone, and I don't know about y'all holding them guns on me like that. Y'all probably shoot each other. You can tell I'm from Louisiana.
Yes.
Anybody watch the Swamp People?
Yes.
That's my people.
Uh-huh.
Shoot them in the head, Junior. Shoot them in the head.
Shoot him.
All right, so let me try this.
Shoot him with your gun.
Y'all put that up there.
Kill your aggressors in the chat. Oh, this dude. That is right. So that's his famous little bit. He does that. That's his thing. Right? And I mean, even in this video, they talk about how it's like, it's a demonstration, guys. Like, this is not how you should. If two people pointed guns at you, do whatever the fuck they say. Like, don't be trying none of that shit. Anyway, so in this video, right, where he's talking about this breakdown of the fastest gun disarm, this motherfucker says some shit. Okay? This is what he says. Play the video. Do the thing. Go on. You know you wanna. Do the thing. Play. Play the video. Why not playing? Let's do...
Great example. Just, I mean, gosh, 60 days ago, I'm in Haiti meeting with Jimmy Barbecue, the head gang leader of all the gangs in Haiti. And, you know, there's $1 million bounty on one of this guy's heads from the FBI.
This guy.
And I remember standing there. I told him, I says, La Musanju is his name. I said, hey, you got $1 million bounty. That, you know, for the FBI. I said, if it was dead or alive, I could kill you right now. And I have the speed and ability I could have. But I'm surrounded by 35 mineral weapons. And I go, well, I'd never get out of here.
Yeah, of course.
And the government won't pay it. He started laughing because it made everybody bristle. And then he goes, if it was worth $5 million, I'd turn myself in. So you guys, I've been in plenty enough situations. And I'll just tell folks.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't like violence.
How do I pause this for real? Pause. Okay. So yeah, I mean, Collin, you know Jimmy Barbecue, right? We've talked about this previously in the past. I think we talked about it with Robert Durden, right? Did a bunch of stuff on Dan Cohen reporting, I think.
I don't think so.
I remember. We definitely talked about.
Well, we definitely have. I'm not sure if Rob was.
Yep.
I guess then.
He was. In fact, I have it linked in this article. I'm members.
Okay.
We talked about it literally like March of 2024. So
sure, yeah.
About the, the Haitian cannibals and whatnot and all the nonsense involved with that, right?
Right.
We've also heard plenty of rumors about Jimmy Barbecue getting weapons trafficked to him by all sorts of people. You're welcome to look into that online if y'all want to. I don't want to accuse people. I might have mentioned already. But that is a factor. And with this guy being at SHOT Show, I don't know why he's being at SHOT Show. That's where this McDojo Life video was taken at, right? I don't know if you know what SHOT Show is, like a big gun convention, right?
No.
So that, anyway,
I don't do guns, so
I feel you. But it definitely makes me suspicious as hell, right? Anyway, me, Collin, it piqued my interest. I was like, you know what? I got time, let's look further, right? So, you see shit like this, right? Where he's, praise reporting from Haiti, right? We're taking a little praise break. So,
which, given if he's an evangelical Christian, makes it fits the profile.
Yep.
That they'll go to these countries
June,
too,
but has so far failed to improve the situation. From Theresier's stronghold, Marx and his team moved across town to meet with Lanmo Sanju, leader of the infamous 400 Malozo gang. famous for kidnapping 17 American missionaries in 2021.
And he is steeped in black magic and voodoo.
We visited the town of Gontier, where the gang has been blocking the main artery to the north of Port-au-Prince. Marx's goal was to negotiate safe passage for residents to return. This is the town of Gontier. It's about an hour outside of Port-au-Prince. It was taken over by gangs about 2 months ago, and now we're here to meet with that very gang, the 400 Mawozo gang, to see if we can get them to allow the people to come back to their homes.
Can we pray?
But I mean, you know, we'll get to it, but this whole thing is part of like ATP Ministries, right? Which is his organization, I do believe. I don't know if he's the founder or one of the founders, right? But he's got a couple of people involved in that. But you know, it gives him a great out to like travel, you know, for missionary work. So, you know, it's why he ends up in places like Haiti and things like that. I mean, he literally is here meeting with Jimmy Barbecue, you know, which is just wild that he gets access somehow. Like, I would be avoiding this guy if it were me, you know, like, it's just
My name
wild.
is Jimmy Barbecue Cherizy.
Come on. I wonder why it's being weird. I might give it a refresh. Let's see how that works out. But do you have any thoughts so far? Like,
I mean, I did. I lost the thought. It's giving. What was it? I wanted to say something, but yeah, I could see why you have suspicions about this guy. But
yeah, wild.
But yeah, I think it's just, yeah, but it's like stereotypical. I don't want to say stereotypical, but like typical evangelical Christian going to these countries like Haiti, you know, to do mission work, quote unquote. Yep. Try and bring people to the Lord. Yeah, I know the spiel. So I'm just wondering how this, well, I'm sure you're going to get into this, but how does this relate to him wanting to become governor?
So a quick look on his YouTube channel reveals that in between his interviews with Dog the Bounty Hunter and standard praise breaks, you will find things like spreading hope in Israel, Israel updates, Syrian outreach centers attacked, and TPUSA Faith Pastor Summits. Don't worry, I will get to it. I promise I'll get back to the nonsense Kirk bullshit. I promise.
Okay, so pro-Israel, I mean, standard. Next.
So, you know, this is from his bio on his website, right? Severely abused and tortured as a child. By the time he graduated from high school, his lifestyle was filled with drugs, fights, and theft. The discipline of military life and faith in God helped him recover from his traumatic childhood and empowers him to help others. Today, Victor focuses his attention to the plights of those affected by ISIS, troubled juvenile offenders, and supporting military personnel from all branches, including the special operations community. The motherfuckers, spec ops, you know, like former jarhead trigger puller working with spec ops, doing humanitarian work across the world. Dude, I've read enough Tom Clancy to start some speculation. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So let's start, first of all, with his outreach centers in Syria, right? So,
hey everybody, Victor Marx here. Just a quick update. Our outreach center in Syria at Camp Al-Hol.
Al-Hol, AAHAWL,
which is an ISIS confinement camp, was attacked. First, great news, none of our team was killed or injured, but we were the only operating center that was attacked, and it's because we're bringing the gospel into the.
You're bringing the gospel, yada yada, right? I mean, he literally hands out like, where's it at? Hold on. Like he hands out fucking these. So his own testimony in comic book form for the children, right? So you 5,000 copies of it, Collin. So All Hall, actually All Hall, AAHOL, right? So journalist Vanessa Beeley, friend of the show, wrote here about the conditions in All Hall camps back in 2023. Conditions for these children in All Hall and Raj camps are life-threatening, deeply degrading, and in many cases inhumane. Their cumulative psychological impact may amount to torture, medical care, clean water, as well as education and recreation for children are grossly inadequate. It is claimed that an estimated 371 children have died in 2019 in All Hall camp from preventable disease or hypothermia. Children have also drowned in sewage pits, died in tent fires, and been hit and killed by water trucks. These children come from many of the countries that have been responsible for the regime change war waged against Syria since 2011. As Vanessa explained further, the camps have been increasingly dangerous and violent as detainees, including many loyal to ISIS, have carried out attacks against other detainees, camp authorities, and aid workers. The UN reported that 90 people were murdered in Al Hall in 2021 and 42 from January to mid-November 2022. Child rape and trafficking is rife in these camps. Conditions are even worse in these prisons and makeshift detention centers where the SDF is holding up to 1,000 detainees from about 20 countries who are boys who were apprehended before they turned 18. In these prisons, overcrowding initially was so severe that many of the detainees slept shoulder to shoulder. Many imprisoned Syrian and foreign boys were initially held in cells with men. So, as a longtime atheist such as myself, you might notice that countless times men of the cloth tend to use their positions of trust and power for various means, abuse, rape, and trafficking included. So, as well as those involved in like organizations that, you know, like the anti-trafficking organizations that end up being found to be trafficking, that kind of shit. So, what does this outreach center do, you might ask? Along with handing out 5,000 copies of Victor's testimony in comic book form for the children, you'll see in the same video below a child holding a stuffed lion and lamb comfort toys. So, the lions are toys ATP Ministries gives to traumatized children for comfort. On its surface, a compassionate act, but not for someone who understands how the CIA uses toys for propaganda. Back in the bin Laden days, the CIA had once considered producing a line of Osama bin Laden demon dolls. Okay? Codenamed Devil Eyes, the 30-centimeter action figure depicted the late Al-Qaeda leader with a heat-dissolving plastic face, which peeled off to reveal a demonic, cat-like face and glowing green eyes. Although they didn't go through with this plan, 3 prototypes were produced. Things like this make one suspect of toys given to kids in active war zones, well-meaning though it may be, especially toys with QR codes printed on their paws. Which, that could go anywhere it wanted at any time. To me, you know, so we're going to watch this little video real quick that explains more about it.
So the Lion and Lamb Initiative is basically an attempt to help children who suffered from trauma be able to calm down so that they can relax at night and go to sleep in peace. And it's hard for people who haven't suffered from trauma to understand this, but the kids who have gone through ISIS rolling into their towns, it's extremely damaging to their psyche. There's a tactile sense of comfort because they're, you know, a cushy, soft little lion for the boys, lambs for the girls, and then inside there's music.
Which to me, the symbolism of lambs for girls, like lambs notoriously led someplace. They're led a place, if I remember my idioms, you know, like
common to the area, but was designed by somebody who's got their PhD in music, especially for trauma relief. So this isn't just some song we went and pulled down off of iTunes. This was expressly designed to be able to help a child to relax. And then also in there are prayers in their local dialect that help the child to connect with God.
Prayers in their native dialect for them to connect with God. Who's God? Maybe not theirs, but, you know, some God. Not to say these are being used for propaganda, but the mechanisms and tech to use them that way is certainly there. Like, you know, a toy that the child will be alone with, telling it prayers by itself. Plenty of things could be fucked up with that, you know? Anyway, as mentioned above, Victor and 18 Ministries have also done outreach in Israel. On Victor's YouTube channel, he gave out dignity kits for displaced Israeli women affected by the October 7th Hamas attacks, calls for prayers for Israeli children taken by Hamas, and meeting with Pastor Michael, a Messianic pastor from the city of Sderot, Israel, one of the largest cities that was attacked by Hamas on October 7th, to spread hope in Israel, right? You know, look, they're handing out dignity kits, whatever those are. I imagine they come with, you know, female hygiene products and the like. You know, when I sent this to a journalist, they replied to me, displaced from where? The shopping mart? Like, anyway, Victor doesn't put everything up on YouTube. He frequently uploads stuff to Vimeo specifically, right? I don't know why he has like 2 different sets of, you know, content like that. But who am I? We similarly do similar things, but so here is Chaz Yandel, right? You saw him a minute ago explaining those toys, right? Except this time he's at the Dead Sea handing out dignity kits to Israeli women. So you'll even see him like 6 years ago. He's in the West Bank, you know, ton of Palestinian children like clapping for him and welcoming him there, right? Victor specifically. But, you know,
hey everybody, Chaz from All Things Possible Ministries here at the Dead Sea. We're winding up our first
like
of what they're receiving, but they're
anyway. So another video that caught my attention on his Vimeo was his appearance on the Charlie Kirk show. I did say I would get to it, right? So this was a month after October 7th, okay? Where Victor is going to play Charlie's Man on the Ground in Israel, right? I mean, I can just click anywhere in this, right?
Remind our audience the demonic nature of this, because the whitewashing on behalf of the media really bothers me. I'm a stickler for truth, right? And I'm not an apologist for either side. Yesterday I sent out a tweet and the Israeli government responded about, you know, hey, you know, some Christians died in Gaza, what happened here? But what really bothers me, Victor, is I recently got in a dialogue on one of these campuses. They said, oh, you know, when Israel was attacked, like, hold on, no, this was not a military attack, okay? This was not like a bombing of some...
I mean...
But prayer will make the difference.
Amen. Victor, stay right there.
I mean, I could have gone anywhere in that video and you would have seen Israeli propaganda direct from the source. You know, Hasbara from the horse's mouth directly from this guy.
Sure.
Including things like, you know, monsters are beheading and raping children, right? Which we've all talked about this ad nauseum, and it's been debunked by much more informed people than I who've been in the region and discussed this ad nauseum as well. But I find this funny when, you know, there's this narrative going around that, like, he had Israeli handlers, right? Like, here's his man on the ground in Israel. You know what I mean? So I definitely have some questions. But I mean, what else can I talk about? He has an endorsement from Tim Kennedy. You know who that is? You know that's not great. He helped train Free Burma Ranger ethnic humanitarian relief teams, whatever those people are. So yeah, I mean, I think we've seen enough to judge this guy. I certainly have, at least. He's he's been on Sean Ryan, right? Charlie Kirk. Sean Ryan is here. You might recognize the like guy. If I skip forward a little bit. YouTube hates loading right now. For some reason. But like, this is like Sean Ryan show. Dude's ex-Spec Ops, like, is a spook in and of himself. Where is Sean? This guy. Come on. That dude. You may have seen him around.
No.
Frequently brings on spooks of all flavors and, you know, talks about all sorts of things, but definitely weird for me. Worked with Taryn Butler of Taryn Tactical, guy who trained John Wick, right? Halle Berry and Keanu Reeves. They go to that guy. He's like Hollywood's favorite firearms instructor now, right? He classically teaches like 3-gun competition. Working with that guy. One of the ones I found was he personally asked, so he made a video personally asking the community to help find someone who harassed his daughter, right? To like track down someone who harassed his daughter. I definitely don't know if that's gubernatorial, like, you know, ethics, you know, but whatever, I guess. But
you guys are saving kids all over the world now.
Victor Marx regularly puts himself into harm's way to reach children and women who are victims of trauma.
Right here on the border of Gaza, children are always the one that pay the biggest price.
For 20 years, he and his wife Eileen have helped thousands of people discover new hope and experience lasting change from their hurt.
When you hold the hands of an 8-year-old girl that's been held by ISIS for 7 months, it'll change you. It'll make you get perspective on life, what really matters. Over 100 missions complete. With trauma care or help, over 45,000 women and children. You know, people say, well, you risk y'all's lives going over there. Yeah, we do. But if I'm in the center of God's will, is it my business how I go home or not?
So, yeah. I don't know. I definitely have my thoughts. Any closing thoughts for you, K-Bear?
So he's just a right-wing nut, basically.
And possible a lot of things. And definitely traveling and, you know, bringing body armor and firearms places. So, I don't know. You know, I'm sure some more digging and investigation could be done. But, you know, if you're... Anything else you wanted to say before we get out of this? Like,
I mean, it's very interesting, and I think definitely I definitely understand why you have your feelers up.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of... I'm still wondering government though. It's like I would think that a lot of this information, even though I wouldn't say, but I think the idea of him being connected should give people pause.
Oh, for sure.
Because, so do you have information? Like, I'm just kind of curious, like, besides what's his platform? Like, besides this op stuff, like, I'm just like, not to say I care that much, but like, I'm just curious to see, like, what does he stand for in terms of, like, helping Coloradans or whatever, like, what's his stance on healthcare or education and, like, all this other stuff. I guess it's going to be shit, but I mean, that's kind of what I'm curious about.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of this information will kind of come out in the wash.
On the issues, protecting family. Can I click? No.
Probably nothing.
Protecting freedom. Protecting nature. How are you going to do that, dog?
Okay.
Family. Faith. Protecting faith. Faith and freedom. Like, that's what he puts on.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Go to protecting family. Let me see what he says there.
Okay. Learn more. Expanding school choice. Public, private, charter, harder schools. Right. Making Colorado affordable. I'll fight to lower the cost of living by cutting the state tax on groceries and utilities. Common sense, law and order. Public safety isn't political, it's essential. I'll back our police, crack down on fentanyl trafficking, and expand local prevention and recovery programs so families can live without fear in their own communities. So, yeah, tough on crime, standard shit, But I question the fuck out of why he's in Syria, and Israel. He's literally being the mouth of Hezbollah for Charlie Kirk, with supposedly Israel doing the deeds, because he was turning away from it. That's definitely someone to look out for, especially if he's going to now start running for shit. So, I imagine he'll support Israel wholeheartedly as governor of Colorado, if elected. So, but yeah, that's all I had. But anyways, I need to pull up the PowerPoint so I can have my things. Where's it at? I closed too many tabs, Care Bear. I did the thing. Let's do Office. And then this. Come on. But yeah, definitely some shady shit going on. But stay tuned for more. If I find anything more, get any responses, I'll let people know. But yeah, that's all I had. So, and you already said everything you wanted to, right?
Yep.
Well, I'm just pulling up our last slides to get out of here. And for some reason, internet's being hella slow. Come on. Do the thing. There we go. This. It loading. Cool. Well, talking about these things is why we're demonetized. You can scan that QR code on your screen. Go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. If you would like to leave us a little dollary due to help keep the lights on, we appreciate it. But otherwise, like and subscribe. Share this video with Colorado peeps. And leave a comment. Let me know what you think. What are your judgments and speculations? Otherwise, thanks for watching. We did it. That's gonna be our show. If Indy's in the chat, tell people what they need to know about your shit coming up. I think we're doing a Sunday show, if I'm not mistaken. So otherwise, people enjoy your Turkey Day. What else you got, Care Bear? We'll be here next Wednesday. Same bad time. Same bad channel. So you can follow us at Get Any News on Twitter and get updates that way. Or on our Substack, which you can find at indienews.network. Should be a link to the Substack there. Always stuff's in the description below if you need to find stuff. But otherwise, I think that's it. So remember, kids, labels are bad. Stay independent. Good night, fam.
Have a good week, everyone, and happy Thanksgiving.
There's a difference between peace and liberation, is there not? You can have injustice and have peace. Isn't that correct? Have peace and be enslaved.
Yes.
So peace isn't the answer.
No.
Liberation is the answer.